Not hot. Mike is hot. Mike is hot. Mike is hot, everyone. Mike is hot. So hot. So here we are. It's a lovely day. Thanks so much for tuning in. Waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting. There it is. There it is. It's a lovely day. It's a lovely day in the neighborhood. A lovely day in the neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? The microphone is hot. Microphone is hot. Microphone is hot. And I am here on time. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Mike. This is my YouTube page, Mox News. And this is your Wake and Bake News at 7 p.m. I'm your host, Moxie. But let's see. We have a fuck ton of videos tonight that I have made for you on April 16th, including CDC counts probable cases, because we got to count the probable cases too. The probable cases count. Everything is COVID right now. You die in a fucking car crash and you're COVID-19, and it's fucking true. Hey everybody! Oh, and thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. It would just be horrible for me to be sitting here by myself, talking. No one's listening. So, it's very nice of you to take time out of your busy day to share with me, to share with us. It's very, very nice of you. So I really appreciate it. That's why I go to work and I put together all these clips for you guys, because we got to have clips. If we're going to do a news show, we got to have clips. And my backyard has marijuana growing in it. I don't see any marijuana. It does look like a nice backyard to have, though. Usually the Boo Bear's laying right down there by the river, but he's playing in the water right now. He's underneath the river. He's right down there. So we can play clips. We can talk about social distancing. Oh, I told you last night I told you I was going to show you my mask that I got, because people were bitching at me about, oh, you gotta wear a mask, Mike. And I was like, oh, I have a mask. Look, I have a fucking mask. See, I have a mask. Spidey Man mask, and it's not some stupid mask like you gotta I can tie it back here. And then when I don't have to have it on, I can just take it and put it like that. I don't have to try and hang it off my ear or find a spot for it. So I have a mask. I am not wearing the mask. I will not wear the mask unless it becomes mandatory to wear the mask. That's the only reason that I got the mask, is so that if it does become mandatory, I am prepared. But I wanted to show you, because I kept telling you last night that I have a mask. Somebody was like, get a fucking mask, wear a fucking mask. I don't know who the fuck was saying that yesterday. I think it was Pete was yelling at me about wearing a mask. I have a mask. I'll wear a mask when I have to. Right now I don't have to. I'm not going to wear a mask. Let's see. And we have a big fat dab ready to go, because I have not done a big fat dab yet today. In fact, I haven't done any dab at all today yet. So I thought that now would be a good time for us to smoke the marijuanas, because you must smoke the marijuanas if you truly want to protect yourself from the COVID-19. Again and again and again and again and again. I've told you that I have heard that the COVID-19, the effects of the COVID-19 are very similar, or are inflammation of the lungs. And the cannabis is an anti-inflammatory. right? So that's why they prescribe it for arthritic patients. So I'm going to play this clip from the CDC about counting probable cases so that I can heat up the bong here and not be dominating the microphone. And I'll be right back.
The CDC has announced it will include both confirmed and probable cases of COVID-19 in its count. The change follows guidance from the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists and could add thousands to the total number of patients and deaths in the U.S. Until now, the CDC only counted cases it had confirmed or positive tests by third parties it had yet to confirm. Cases are classified as probable when they meet certain clinical criteria without a lab test confirming COVID-19. They can now also be classified as such if there is, for example, presumptive laboratory evidence of the disease. The change announced by the CDC on Tuesday came the same day the U.S. recorded its highest daily number of deaths from the coronavirus. The spike was reportedly due to new calculations by the New York City Health Department, which is also including probable cases in its tabulation. New York City officials have said data based only on laboratory-confirmed tests likely fails to account for people who succumb to the disease at home before they could receive treatment. To date, the CDC has reported more than 24,000 coronavirus deaths in the U.S., although data compiled by Johns Hopkins University puts that figure at more than 31,000. For Newsy, I'm Adam El-Rashidi.
So now is the time when we smoke the marijuanas in space! In space! But first, I have to let the bong cool down just a little bit, because it's a little bit on the hot side at the moment. So we'll give it just a sec. Microphone is hot. It's very hot, just like the bowl. It's hot, hot, hot. And then we'll take a beautiful dab in space. So it gives you a chance to prepare. So we can all take a dab in space together. Big fat puffs for everyone. Follow me and do exactly as you see. Okay, so we got the COVID, and I thought that this is important, talking about how the CDC is counting probable cases. You would think that they would want as accurate a count as possible as to, who is actually COVID positive, who actually died from COVID, and who didn't. But it doesn't seem all that important. We'll just count the probable. That's most likely COVID. Yeah, that's most likely COVID. That's most likely. There is a horrible, horrible game being played on the public, and I just think that the officials who play this game on the public, need to be held accountable in a big way. Speaking of which, the Michigan governor, right? Yesterday, the proud Americans in Michigan went out into the street to protest the ridiculous restrictions that keep them from going about their normal lives. Just a sec, ready. Follow me and do exactly as you see. Now is time for Dabs in Space! That is so nice. That is so nice. Oh my gosh. You can trust me when I say I'm feeling much better now. And that's the reason that I encourage the use of cannabis so much, because one little tiny puff can make a huge difference in a person's life. A brownie A cannabis brownie. I have made cannabis butter out of just leaves. No flowers, no sugar leaf, just green leaves. I've made cannabis butter out of that, and I gave a brownie to someone, and she told me it was the best she ever felt in her entire life. And what is it going to take to get more brownies? Which worked out well for me. But the whole thing is, is that that's where we're at. Is that you can, again, you can have this ho hum, oh, the world is just beating me down, I don't know how I'm gonna make it through another day life, or you can feel the best you ever felt in your entire life. Okay, that's the difference between having cannabis and not having cannabis. And I'm just talking about leaves. Okay, so there's something really and truly important there. So important that I believe it goes beyond the physical. I honestly believe it's incredibly spiritual. I believe the cannabis is the sacrament that connects us to the earth and to each other and to the higher spirit. How much more can you ask for? And it makes you feel the best you've ever felt in your life. And it makes food taste better. And it makes colors brighter. And it makes music sound so much sweeter. How much more can you ask for? Right? And it's all just because the reason food tastes better is because you're more relaxed, and all this nagging, fucking every day, never end, nagging in the back of your brain stopped. And all of a sudden food tastes better. And music sounds sweeter. And you know why? Because you're so much more in this moment than you were before the cannabis. Before the cannabis, you were like eating, yeah, I'm eating, it's like it's food, I don't know what is food, Now you're like, oh my God, this is so good. You know what I'm saying? Come on, people, get with the program. The marijuanas will save your life or give you a life that you never thought you could have. Okay, and that's all I'm trying to say. Okay, so where are we now? We did the bong hits. We did the Corona. CDC counts probable deaths. We have pandemic protest. The pandemic protest again. I want to show you the protest because I've talked about protesters forever. Before there was an Occupy, for long before there was a COVID-19. And the point I've always made is to support the protesters. And why? Because the protesters are going into the street to fight. They're going into the street. They're putting their lives on the line. In a police state, to stand up against the police state and say, hey, you told us this is not the way things are supposed to be in the land of the free. That's what the protesters are doing. And that's why you should always support them, because it takes a lot of guts to go and stand up against the police state and say this ain't right. And it does. So again, the protesters in Michigan, so the protesters in Michigan stand up in this proud American tradition of taking to the streets and demanding, saying this is not right, and we deserve better, demanding their voices be heard, and the Michigan governor. Right? The Michigan governor, it's not in this clip, but the Michigan governor talks about the protesters waving Confederate flags. Now I want you to look at the protesters And this is why I've said again and again and again to support the protesters, because they're standing up in this proud American tradition, you know, to fight against an over-impressive, over-intrusive police state, right? To say, no, you're supposed to listen to us. We don't listen to you. You listen to us. You're supposed to represent us. And you're not. And that's what the people in the street are doing, always and forever. And for that reason, you should always support them, because it is this proud American tradition. You know, think about the women who went into the street to demand the right to vote. You know, think about the people who demanded civil rights. You know, it's such a it takes so much guts to do it, you know. And then this cow governor in Michigan, right? She fucking says, oh, they're waving the Confederate flag. Okay, I want you to take a look at this video. I don't see no Confederate flags. They're waving basically labeling all of them racist, instead of, again, proud Americans. And this is what I really hate. This is what I saw happen to the Occupy protesters and anybody. I mean, the Black Lives Matter, anybody who's really standing up. You know, the very first thing they do is they vilify you. Okay? So don't listen to those people that are vilifying the protesters. The protesters are proud Americans demanding their voices be heard. Always support the protesters. And here is the protest, or some of the protest from Michigan from yesterday. And then I'll play a clip of the governor.
We're looking live at the White House. Within the next 30 minutes or so, President Trump expected to detail a roadmap to start reopening parts of the country. He will do that during a call with governors around noon, and he could explain them in more detail during a news conference this afternoon. Some state leaders, including Governor Jay Inslee, worry lifting stay-home orders too soon could bring a new surge of infections and preventable deaths. President Trump claims some of the states with fewer cases could lift restrictions by the end of this month. And frustration with stay-at-home orders sparking protests in some states. This is in Lansing, Michigan, where thousands poured into the Capitol to protest the governor's stay-at-home order. Cars jammed the streets in a protest organizers called Operation Gridlock.
If you're sick, stay home and in your house. The ones that can work need to work. We need to open our businesses. Michigan is in dire straits now. We need to get to work.
A group of people and small business owners have now filed a lawsuit against Michigan's governor, alleging the stay-at-home order is unconstitutional. A similar but smaller protest was held in North Carolina.
Now to those demonstrations around the country against stay-at-home orders. The protesters rallying in state capitals, calling the orders too extreme and a violation of their rights. Steve Osasami has more. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, Michael. Many of these people take offense to the notion that they're not sensitive to the health crisis that's happening in this country right now. Some of them are having to sign up for unemployment for the first time in their lives. They want their government officials to take the risk, end the shutdown orders, and get this country back to work immediately. In Michigan, they're calling it Operation Gridlock. Thousands poured into Lansing, the state capital, to protest the governor's stay-at-home order.
If you're sick, stay home and in your house. The ones that can work need to work. We need to open our businesses. Michigan is in dire straits now. We need to get to work.
Michigan's governor was not pleased that protesters outside her office weren't socially distancing. COVID-19 has killed more than 1,900 in the state.
The sad irony here is that the protest was that they don't like being in this stay-home order, and they may have just created a need to lengthen it.
The protest isn't ending there. A group of residents and small business owners have filed this lawsuit against the governor, saying that her stay-at-home order, meant to fight the spread of the coronavirus, is unconstitutional, arguing that Governor Whitmer has placed the cost of these orders squarely upon the shoulders of private individuals and their families, and has failed failed to justly compensate affected parties. Across the country, as the lines to the food and unemployment offices grow longer, patience is wearing thin for the restrictions meant to save lives. They were marching in North Carolina, too. One woman was taken away by police. They were shouting that they're more afraid of the spiraling economy than they are of any virus.
Everybody gets to make their own choice. If you're scared, stay home. But I'm not scared, and I don't want to stay home.
In Kentucky, where the disease has killed at least 115 people, churchgoers are suing, saying that the governor has gone too far keeping the faithful from church services.
If I don't exercise my right, I fear that I will lose my right. And my right to religion is one that's been fought for centuries.
A number of states are now discussing ways to reopen, in some cases, setting up committees to give them options. George.
Okay, Steve, thanks. And of course, it's being discussed at the White House as well. And that's where we want to go for more on President Trump's plans to reopen the country. As we've said, he's expected to announce new guidelines this afternoon for states to consider as they move to get up and running again and ease social distancing. Our senior White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, is in Washington with the details. And Cecilia, this is clearly the issue the president most focused on right now.
Yeah, he's focused on it. George, good morning to you. He also says this is the most difficult decision that he will have to make in his presidency. And you know this, he's hearing from both sides right now. He had this conference call with CEOs and business leaders yesterday who really gave him an earful and said that Americans are not going to feel comfortable returning to life as normal unless there's widespread testing available. And that's a notion that the president has really pushed back on. He says he doesn't believe that there needs to be widespread testing in order to move ahead. So here's what we're looking at. The president today with these new guidelines, and they are expected to be exactly that, just guidelines. He says it's going to be up essentially to states and local communities to decide how and when to move forward. But the White House is looking at 9 states where they're seeing fewer cases of COVID-19 that could be looking at lifting these social distancing guidelines that the White House had issued a few weeks back to head back to life as normal, essentially before this May 1st deadline. In states where the numbers are still high, we're looking at these social distancing guidelines staying in place. But the president, George, has said that he wants America to be the comeback kids. He's got health experts on the other side saying, slow down, don't do this prematurely.
And Cecilia, those $1,200 relief checks passed by Congress and pushed by the White House are starting to go out right now. At that press conference yesterday, the president appeared to act as if he had nothing to do with that unprecedented decision to put his name on the checks.
Yeah, he said he didn't know very much about it. He said, quote, people are going to be very happy to get a big, fat, beautiful check with his name on it. George, here's the reality. Sources are telling us the president was involved in this decision.
Cecilia Vega, thanks very much. Robin?
It is now 13 minutes past the hour. You know what? People clog the streets of downtown Lansing, Michigan, telling the governor there that they want to go back to work. This is a first look at cross country in this hour. Now that is Lansing, Michigan. Notice how it's snowing and people are in their cars, but they were trying to get the idea across that they are growing restless, and some of the demonstrators say the governor's order makes it impossible for them to work. More than 1,900 people, though, have died from coronavirus in the state of Michigan. To Kentucky. Look how close some of the demonstrators here were standing as they were trying to make their point outside the state capitol. But they were gathering while the governor was inside giving the daily press briefing about the pandemic. And then in New Mexico, the governor is begging people to please vote from home. She says they're automatically mailing everybody requests for absentee ballots. And clerks around the state are still planning on opening polling sites, but it depends on how many volunteers they get. Don't forget Wisconsin here, Smithfield. Meat processing plant is closing now. A sausage and bacon plant, the company said. A small number of employees there tested positive. Smithfield says it will take about 2 weeks to clean and sanitize that plant. Employees will be paid, they said, while it's closed. I think we may have been on the wrong video there. You know, a police department in Maryland has an important message for people who might be getting too comfortable. You're gonna love this story. You know, in the stay-at-home orders, they say your pants are required when you go outside to check the mail. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. So, yeah, the Taneytown Police Department Facebooked this message on their Facebook page, and it says, please Remember to put pants on before leaving the house to check your mailbox. You know who you are. This is your final warning. So Bob, that says to me, somebody's gotten a little reputation for doing this, or maybe they were caught on camera. But how funny. Humans were something else.
Oh.
Pants required. Hi, Bob.
Thank God for window shades in Maryland, huh? Can you imagine what's going on inside the house? That's what's going on outside the house? That's just lazy. Anyway, let me show you what's going on. If a law can't keep your pants on, the weather's going to, because it's going to be cold.
It's cold out there. It's cold out there every day. Let's see. Now, I saw in that clip that I just played, I saw lots and lots and lots of American flags. I myself, this is too loud, I myself did not see, I did not see a Confederate flag. Did you guys see a Confederate flag? Because, you know, not that it's a big deal either way. I mean, you know, whatever. There's, you know, 1 or 2 Confederate flags. I saw a sea of American flags. Proud American people proudly flying their stars and stripes, which used to symbolize freedom. And this cow governor in Michigan sees fucking sees racist people waving Confederate flags. Okay, and I think that we should all be disgusted by that. Again, this is why I stand up for the protesters, because this is the first thing that they do is they say, oh, I remember with the Occupy, right? The Occupy was such a beautiful thing for me, and to watch the news people at the beginning of the Occupy, the Fox News, the MSNBC, the CNN, they all vilified those people as criminals and vagrants, and Fox went so far as to call them public defecators and public fornicators. You know, and drug addicts, right? And it was so disgusting because it was like these people, you know, they're Americans, proud Americans, and they weren't just going into the streets. They were going in and they were staying in the streets. And these news people just shit on them for like the first month, 2 months. They were just, you know, and then it was just this little background story. And then the police brutality became extremely widespread and it became a big story. And that really became the focus of the Occupy, was the police brutality. And it was really important that they highlighted, you know, the police state in this country. The Occupy movement really highlighted the police state, and it made it obvious to anyone who's paying attention. And again, those people were putting their lives on the line in the proud American tradition of going into the street and demanding the change we were promised. Okay? That's what this is all about. That's what the protests have always been about. Always support the protesters, and when you see some fucking jackass talking shit about the protesters, you know, number one, that they don't respect Americans. They don't respect American tradition. They don't respect freedom. And number two, they probably don't have the balls to go into the street and stand up against a police state. Right? So, and those who can do, those who cannot criticize. That's the way it works. Trust me, I see it every day. Okay, so here we go. Governor of Michigan calling the protesters basically racist.
Gretchen Whitmer has spent most of her working life in the grubby, small-bore confines of Michigan state politics. That is not a training ground for excellence. So when she was elected governor a little over a year and a half ago, nobody expected that Whitmer would suddenly morph into a wise and inspired chief executive. And indeed, she hasn't. When the coronavirus hit Michigan in force last month, Whitmer had no clue what to do. So she responded with a mixture of comical ineptitude and a weird kind of arbitrary fascism. She banned the sale of carpets and paint and potted plants. She told people they couldn't fish or go to church or drive alone to their own homes. But at the same time, Whitmer kept liquor stores, weed shops, and lotto kiosks open because, and this was purely an epidemiological matter in the interest of the public health, those were essential services, quote. They also happen to provide massive tax revenue to her government. The whole thing was ridiculous. It was just a matter of time before the people suffering under this insanity said something about it, and yesterday they did. Thousands of Michigan residents drove to the state capitol in Lansing to express their displeasure. They didn't hurt anyone while they were there. They did it peacefully, as is their enshrined right under the American Constitution. But Governor Whitmer didn't like this. In fact, she was outraged. If there's one thing Gretchen Whitmer doesn't care for, it's civil disobedience, especially when it's aimed at her. As Whitmer explained yesterday, complaining about her decisions could kill people.
You know, when people are flying the Confederate flag and untold numbers who gassed up on the way here or grabbed a bite on the way home, we know that this rally endangered people.
When you disagree with Gretchen Whitmer, you endanger the public. That's the new standard in Michigan. Debbie Dingell supports that standard. Dingell is a longtime GM lobbyist, a car lobbyist, who inherited her congressional seat from her husband, who in turn inherited it from his father. Dingell has represented Michigan in the U.S. House of Representatives continuously for 88 years, since 1932. The family business is politics, but it's really a form of monarchy. So you won't be surprised to learn that Debbie Dingell is very popular socially in Washington. She shares with her neighbors there an undisguised loathing for the people of Michigan. She expressed that contempt this morning on NBC.
What happened yesterday was inexcusable. People did not have masks, they did not have gloves, they did not distance themselves, they had Confederate flags, swastikas, they blocked an ambulance trying to get to a hospital. Bringing hate and fear into a time that is already full of fear and anxiety is just unacceptable. There were people barehanded handing candy to children. What they did was to help spread this disease around the state more, most likely, not contribute to the mitigation, and it just made me sad.
Oh, sad. Debbie Dingell is sad. She's sad that people are expressing inconvenient political beliefs when they should be drinking alone at home or obediently buying more state-sponsored lotto tickets. Why can't they hit Michigan's entirely essential weed stores and numb out as their benevolent leader Gretchen solidifies her control over their lives? Why do they have to complain all the time? Saying unapproved things is racist. It inspires fear and hate. Stop it right now, you proles! How dare you fire up a bowl and accept your fate?
God damn it, Tucker. Don't even let get my dab out, Tucker. That's pretty good. I think that's good. Does that look good? I think that looks good. Wait, let's see. Can you get it? Can you get it? Get it! Get it! Oh, get it, you bitch! You, oh, there it is. Oh, look at it, look at it. Oh, look at it, look at it. It's pretty good. We should do a little bit more. Little bit more, not quite good enough. Oh, that's better. Oh, yeah, now we're talking. All right. Got that ready to go. I saw lots and lots of American flags. I did not see a Confederate flag. Michelle says that she saw some footage somewhere else that was good. Did you see Confederate flags flying in the protest, Michelle? Because I didn't see that. I didn't see real big long clips of the protest, though I couldn't find that. But it looked like proud Americans standing up in a proud American tradition to try and get their government to listen to them, right? That's what I saw. Oh, did you see some? And did you see some in the chase? Did you see some in the clips that I played? I didn't see any in the clips I played. But you know, again, I'm not looking for. I didn't go out and get. I'm not seeing big long clips. The mainstream media does not play big long clips of protest almost ever. Almost never. They play 10-second, 5-second clips of protest in order to make the protest seem small. That's the whole point of them playing short little condensed clips. You think, oh, well, that's not a real protest, you know. So, but there's, I mean, clearly they said there was thousands of people there in Michigan. And again, I love protest. And when I see a protest in the street, there's nothing that really makes me more proud, honestly, of America than seeing people in the street protesting. Even though they're protesting horrible things about America, it makes me proud that those people are brave enough to stand up against a police state, that there's Americans out there that are brave enough to stand up to an over-intrusive police state government. I respect you so much. Keep up the good work. So we got that out of the way. I really want to talk about that. I thought it was really important. Now I have, well, let's see. I have a clip about oil production. I have a couple clips about oil production. They're going to cut back. They're going to cut way back on oil production for the next couple of months because nobody's buying gas, right? So they're going to try and get the price of gas go back up. Because, of course, you know, that makes so much sense when nobody's buying gas. And, you know, we got to get the price of gas back up. It's $1.10 a gallon for gas or whatever. I have no idea. And it's the cheapest price it's been that anybody can remember. And no one's buying it. I love that. I love it. You have no idea how much I love that. I love that so much. Michelle, can you hear the words coming out of my mouth? Is that my Boo Bear? Michelle's not telling me if she saw a Confederate flag. Go up on the couch, boo-boo. Go up on the couch. Can you go up on the couch? You're just not going to do it because I said to do it, huh? You're just not going to do it because I say go up on the couch, and he's like, no, I don't think so. I do love that about him, but I also hate it. But I love it. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. Okay, so as I was saying, I have some stuff, some clips about. Oh, I know. I have a clip here about the Pentagon accusing Iran. The Pentagon is accusing Iran of harassing U.S. Navy ships, right? So it's not that the U.S. Navy being off the coast of Iran is harassing them in any way, shape, or form, but their ships trying to go around it, trying to circumnavigate fucking giant fucking U.S. Navy ships is somehow a threat, and for that reason we will be blowing up boats in Iran any day now, because we cannot let this crisis go to waste.
Oh, he's coming up.
The U.S. military said Iranian vessels made dangerous and harassing maneuvers near American warships in the Persian Gulf this week. According to a statement from the Navy, 11 Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy vessels approached the U.S. ships Wednesday as they were conducting exercises with Army helicopters. The Navy said the Iranian vessels crossed the bows and sterns of the American ships multiple times at extremely close range and high speeds. The U.S. crews repeatedly issued warnings over the radio, ship's horns, and long-range acoustic noisemaker devices, but they didn't get a response. The Iranian vessels left after about an hour. The incident came after weeks of relative silence among the U.S. and Iran. Tensions between the two countries skyrocketed earlier this year after an American airstrike killed Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani.
What's happening?
Iranian officials didn't immediately acknowledge
what is
Wednesday's
happening?
events. For Newsy, I'm Catherine Beek. Japanese Prime Minister
Are you just
Abe
fucking with me
Shinzo
for no
extended
reason?
his coronavirus state of emergency order to cover the entire country on Thursday. When the order was first announced on April 7th, it only applied to roughly 56 million people living in 7 prefectures, including Tokyo and Osaka. That's about half of Japan's total population. The order will remain in effect until at least May 6th. That means it'll be in place over the country's Golden Week holiday, which is usually one of the biggest travel and tourism periods of the year. The state of emergency does not lock down the country. Instead, it authorizes governors and prefectures to urge people to practice social distancing or even stay home. Public transit will continue to run and banks and supermarkets will still operate. But governors can ask schools and non-essential businesses to temporarily shut down. Abe also said Thursday that he plans for the government to give a one-time cash payout of almost $1,000 to every citizen, regardless of how much they make. For Newsy, I'm Catherine Beek.
Of course it is warmongering from Newsy against Iran. Of course it is. I mean, that's pretty obvious. That's what their job is. That's what every fucking U.S. mainstream media news outlet does. Duh. Is it warmongers against Iran? Have you seen any of them do anything different? Why would you expect this one to do something different? State the obvious, why don't you? Huh? Of course it's propaganda. But it comes from the Pentagon. Okay? That's the point. You know, the Newsy just doesn't come up with this story on its own. They get memos from the Pentagon. Okay? And you know that's true. That's what I'm saying. This isn't Newsy propaganda. It's fucking Pentagon propaganda. And that's why I'm playing it, because it's really important that we know about this, not that we can change it, but so that we're not uninformed when we see little other things happening. And maybe we can have a discussion on it that will bring awareness to others, and hopefully one day we'll be able to bring an end to this fucking bullshit. I mean, this war propaganda, right? War propaganda, when you disseminate war propaganda knowingly, with an agenda, right? If you are, the purpose of your war propaganda is to spur war, you know, like me, I'm clearly anti-war. I'm clearly trying to inform the public and show them who the true enemy is. But when these other people do it, CNN, Fox, whoever, Newsy, it is war propaganda, okay? And war propaganda is actually an international war crime. Now, the United States will say that we've passed laws that make it okay for our mainstream media to disseminate war propaganda, lies that propagate war. We've passed laws saying it's fine for that brainwashing of the American people. Congress has literally passed laws saying that it is okay for the U.S. mainstream media to do that. And why would Congress do that? Because the U.S. mainstream media is part of the government. So the rules don't apply to them. The Constitution, your freedom, them having to be honest brokers of information doesn't apply to them. All that matters is that, they can help to move the war effort forward. through brainwashing the masses. Now, and again, but even though Congress has made it legal in the United States for the mainstream media to do that, the international law says that it is a war crime, not just criminal. It is a war crime to propagate war in this fashion. So this is again and again why I tell you not to call these people fake news, these mainstream media prostitutes. You don't call them fake news because that gives them a pass. They're not fake news. They're war criminals who must go to prison in order to protect children, in order to make the world a safer place for children. People like Rachel Maddow, Sean Hannity, Anderson Cooper must go to prison because they are knowingly spreading lies about war in order to make it continue as long as possible, in order to help it make it happen in as big a way as possible. And that is pure evil. And that is a threat to all humanity. And this is why it is considered a war crime and an international war crime in international law. And this is why we must send these people to prison. We must keep tabs on them so that we can make examples for the future. That if you try and get away with this bullshit, Rupert Murdoch, you, your families, they will go to prison. Because everybody knows how fucking nepotism is rampant in the fucking news industry. It's disgusting. So you, your families, you war propagandists, you war criminals belong in prison. And one day, hopefully, maybe not too long from now, you will be there. I look forward to that day so much. I think the American people will dance on that day. They will dance like they have never danced before. Because the war propagandists, the evil people who led us to this incredibly dangerous place in history, are now safely behind bars where they can no longer murder innocent people with their evil deeds so that they can make fucking a shiny penny off of it. Disgusting fucking cunts. Anderson Cooper, Sean Hannity, Rachel Maddow. Disgusting. Must go to prison. So we're clear. Just, I mean, the obvious is being stated in the chat. I just want to clarify. Duh. Okay, so that being said, I have a lovely Sean Hannity clip for you. And the Sean Hannity clip is talking about China doing nuclear testing. And the reason that I'm playing a Sean Hannity clip, the reason I'm doing, again, this is the war propaganda I was just talking about. You're going to see more and more and more of it over the coming days. And you're going to see more and more and more just China. And what I want you to remember is that when they said Russia just a few months back, endlessly, they were lying. And we all know it. They were lying to cover up their lame asses. The Democratic Party was lying to cover up the fucking failed, election that they tried to steal from the people. The mainstream media. What is happening? The mainstream media is trying to cover up for their failed fucking mission to try and get the people to believe oh, there's no way Donald Trump can win Hillary Clinton. Every poll says Hillary Clinton's going to win. Oh, Hillary Clinton's the greatest thing that ever walked the face of the earth. And oh, it's Hillary Clinton's turn to be the president of the United States. Oh, fuck Hillary Clinton. Are we fucking clear? You fucking prostitute, you fucking war criminals are full of fucking shit, and we know it. Okay? You're not getting away with anything. And when you start saying China, 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 it's the same fucking shit as when they were saying Russia, 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 Russia. And don't fucking forget it. God damn it.
Another breaking news out of China tonight, possible Chinese nuclear testing. That's stirring a lot of concern. Trace Gallagher, he has the very latest on this story tonight. Trace, what do you got?
Sean, you know, coronavirus is not the only reason the level of trust between the U.S. and China is rapidly diminishing. Fox News has now confirmed that despite China telling the U.S. State Department that it is strictly adhering to the international accord banning all nuclear activity, that China might be secretly conducting nuclear tests with a very low explosive power. The reporting is based on a number of activities that, quote, raise concern, including a high level of activity at one of China's key nuclear testing sites and interruptions in the transmission of data from monitoring stations in China that detect radioactive emissions and seismic tremors. Though the nuclear organization that monitors that data says the interruption is not because of nefarious behavior. But Beijing is also thought to have these special chambers to contain explosives. China's embassy in D.C. has not yet commented, but it's important to remember President Trump is hoping to negotiate a new nuclear deal with China. This reporting affects that. Sean.
All right. Thanks, Trace Gallagher. We'll continue to monitor that report.
Okay, so this is exactly the type of war propaganda that I was talking about. You're going to see a lot more of it in the coming days. And you're going to see a lot talk about lawsuits against China, a lot of talk about the U.S. defaulting on the loans, the money that they owe China. So it's going to be China, 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 China. And I just really want to point out now, as this begins to build, because it's going to build, it's going to build, it's going to build, again, that we, for the last 3 years, have been listening to the media say Russia, 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 and we know it's a fucking lie. We know they're full of shit. And it's so sad that they're so blatantly, obviously full of shit that they can't even see it themselves. They don't even, I mean, they know that they're all full of shit, and yet they act like nobody else can tell. And people tell them constantly, you're fucking full of shit, you fucking lying piece of shit. I bet you the majority of those fucking cunts who do the news can't even go out to a decent fucking restaurant, you know, because the people despise you. The people recognize what you've done to us. And one day we will make you pay. Okay? You want to act like somehow, oh yeah, the people are going into the street to protest are drug users and fornicators and public defecators and oh, racist, they're flying whatever. Confederate flags. You're just so full of shit. Okay? And the American people deserve so much more respect. And they have the right to fly whatever fucking flag they want to fucking fly. That's the fucking truth. I remember there was a gay pride parade like 2 years ago, and somebody had a flag and it was made up to look like an ISIS flag, but all the writing on it was made out of dildos. And CNN was all like, ISIS flag seen flying in gay pride parade. You guys remember that? Because they're so fucking stupid. Because they're so fucking, oh, look at the fear. Look at the war propaganda. See, ISIS is even infiltrating the homos now. Oh my God, not the homos. What will we do? You guys remember that, right? Okay, so, and as I have been saying for a while, Bernie Sanders. Okay, so and Craig wants me to remind you that the telephone lines are open. This is a call-in show. The telephone number is 805-669. There's my Boo Bear. 805-669-6397. He decided to climb out of the river and up onto the bank. So I'm surprised he didn't shake off. He always shakes off when he comes out of the water. 805-669-6397, 805 Mox News. Feel free to call if you like. Otherwise, I don't give a fuck. Doesn't matter to me. I can do this. I can talk for a long time, okay? I am very, very good at what I do. So, I don't need you. I don't need any of you. I say the complete opposite every fucking day. It would be meaningless without you. Completely meaningless. And I couldn't mean that more. So we're clear. Let's see, which one of these videos is it I'm gonna play now? Okay, so I posted this video earlier, but I think it's important to make sure that everyone sees it. So I'm going to play it again. Trump is threatening to adjourn Congress, which apparently he has the constitutional right to do. Basically say, yeah, you guys are out of here. We'll call you back when we need you. And in the middle of a worldwide shutdown, United States shutdown, I feel that threat is just a little bit over the top, in my personal opinion.
The Senate should either fulfill its duty and vote on my nominees, or it should formally adjourn so that I can make recess appointments.
President Donald Trump threatened to adjourn Congress Wednesday so he can fill administration positions without the approval from the Senate. He said a lack of permanent appointees has made it difficult to govern, especially during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic.
If the House will not agree to that adjournment, I will exercise my constitutional authority to adjourn both chambers of Congress.
The Constitution grants the president power to do this if both chambers disagree on when to adjourn, but no president has ever used it. Most lawmakers are away from Capitol Hill right now because of the pandemic, but both the Senate and the House plan to return on May 4th. The sticking point is that the Senate hasn't formally adjourned. Instead, it's holding pro forma sessions, where lawmakers meet briefly every few days. Since it's not technically in recess, the president can't make any recess appointments.
The current practice of leaving town while conducting phony pro forma sessions is a dereliction of duty that the American people cannot afford during this crisis. It is a scam what they do.
He said this would probably be challenged in court.
But when the court hears that we aren't getting people approved, as Sonny would say, for 2.5 years for an important position that we need because of this crisis, we needed these people before, but now we really need these people.
For Newsy, I'm Stephanie Sandoval.
Sometimes life can be a little overwhelming. Sometimes the weight of the world can be too much to bear. Sometimes you need to stop worrying and take a deep breath. Sometimes you need cannabis. Introducing Brightside, high-quality cannabis delivered right to your door. Brightside offers an extensive menu of strains and products to meet your needs. Choose the experience you want, and we'll send you the dankest herb, the real sticky icky, some top-shelf marijuana. If you like what we send you, keep the whole jar. We'll even include some nugs for you to blaze. As part of Discovery, you'll get to try new strains and products. Side effects may include euphoria, increased appetite, uncontrollable giggles, elevated sensitivity to musical dopeness, and reduced anxiety. Tetrahydrocannabinol may also induce feelings of existential well-being and relentless optimism. With a Brightside subscription, you can get it once a month, once a week, or whenever you want, all at a price you'll like. And yes, this is a real company.
Do you know who I am? You're the wizard.
Ask your doctor if cannabis is right for you. It probably is. Keep it Brightside.
And now it's time for Dabs in Space. But the dab's a little bit hot. Craig has a picture of a dab rig. Is that what you have, Craig? It didn't look like a dab rig to me. It's a bong. Nice looking bong.
One of the guys who's in the Discord server, I forget who this came from. They might be in chat on YouTube right now, but he wanted you to see what he uses for Dabs in Space.
Are you showing it to everyone or just me?
No, I'm just showing it to you, but that's because we're still not quite solid with Discord yet.
Okay.
But Discord has the ability for your viewers to post up cool stuff in the chat so that other people can see it. That's why having access to Discord is going to be kind of a accoutrement of the show.
All right. I am ready to smoke the marijuanas now. The lovely marijuanas, too. So yummy. Oh man, that is tasty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so lucky. What a life, ladies and gentlemen. There's my Boo Bear laying down by the river. I have a delicious cup of tea. I have you beautiful people here to share dabs with in space. And have multiple fucking clips left. As I've been saying all along during this election campaign season, the minute Joe Biden becomes the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, they're going to begin traipsing out the Me Too ladies. The Me Too ladies who have issues with how Joe Biden has treated them over the years. And this morning, Bernie Sanders did an interview with CBS, I believe. I posted it earlier, but I have it now, and I wanted to play it for you because as I've been saying all along, this is what's going to happen with Joe Biden. The second he becomes the nominee, is that there's going to be this Me Too, overwhelming Me Too thing that happens. And it's going to be, just creepy Uncle Joe times a million. So Bernie Sanders was asked earlier, he seemed to be kind of caught off guard by it, about sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. So I thought you guys should see that since we've talked about that a lot.
Bernie Sanders tells CBS this morning he believes the vast majority of his supporters will back former Vice President Joe Biden, even though many, including Sanders' former press secretary, say they won't. In his first network TV interview since endorsing the presumptive Democratic nominee, the Vermont senator spelled out the issues where he expects Joe Biden to adopt a more progressive stance.
On day one of my campaign, what I said is that if I lose, I will be there to support the Democratic nominee, because it is absolutely imperative that we defeat Donald Trump, who, in my view, is the most dangerous irresponsible president in the modern history of this country.
It's an argument against Donald Trump, but making the argument for Joe Biden is a different matter.
To defeat Donald Trump, to me, and make sure that he is not reelected is enormously important. So if you want to make the point that Joe Biden's views are not mine, no kidding. I think everybody in America knows that.
I made a little list of some of the things that have been central to your campaign, and I'm hoping you can let me know which of these you think could be part of a Biden administration. Universal health care is a biggie. Free college for all, canceled college debt, national rent control, a ban on fracking, a wealth tax, marijuana legalization, a 50% reduction in the prison population. These are all things you've campaigned on that have made you popular. Joe Biden doesn't support any of them. Which do you see him moving on?
Well, I think you will see him moving on making public colleges and universities tuition free for families earning less than $125,000, not where I was. I wanted more. I think his views on climate change are not my views, but I think he is prepared to invest many hundreds of billions of dollars into sustainable energies like wind and solar, and in the process, create a whole lot of jobs. I think on healthcare, he is not an advocate of Medicare for all, as I am, but I think he's prepared to come forward with some ideas.
Has he promised you anything?
Well, we have talked about a number of issues, and you will see those evolving, coming out, I believe, in the next weeks and months.
Joe Biden is going to need every vote that he can get. How do you improve on your 2016 record to make sure that...
My 2016 record was a fine record. I think in this house right here, I got a couple of letters from Hillary Clinton thanking me for the very strong support that I gave her. I did rally after rally, state after state. Look, the issue is that the American people are going to have to make a fundamental decision. I'm going to play a role in that. Do we come together to defeat somebody who is a pathological liar, somebody who does not believe in the rule of law, somebody who is prepared to give massive tax breaks to billionaires and ignore the needs of working families, or do we elect Joe Biden as president? I think the choice is pretty clear.
I imagine you will be fundraising for Joe Biden.
You know, we will decide on what we're going to do with fundraising. All I would say is that we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that Donald Trump is not reelected.
How do you campaign in the midst of this pandemic? Should there be conventions? Can you have rallies in the late summer, maybe?
Well, nobody can predict that. The last thing that we want to do is to do anything which gets more people sick and kills more people. That is the last thing that we want to do. So I think that whether or not there'll be a convention remains to be seen. I don't know, nor does anybody else, when rallies will be taking place, when candidates will be able to be out on the streets, shaking hands and talking to people face to face. Nobody knows that.
I think it's indisputable that this virus has exposed how medically and financially fragile many sectors of our society are.
That's right.
In that tragedy and our response to it, do you think society may reevaluate the need for the policies you've been arguing for 30 years now?
The answer is yes. This pandemic, the economic collapse, has exposed the fragility of our healthcare system and our economy in terms of protecting working families. That is a lesson that I think many Americans are going to learn from this.
We also asked Senator Sanders about other concerns some supporters have, including a sexual assault allegation against Joe Biden. His accuser reportedly filed a police report last week, now claiming Biden assaulted her in 1993 when she was working in his Senate office. Published reports indicate her story has changed over the years. Biden's campaign calls the allegation, quote, untrue, and says the alleged incident, quote, absolutely did not happen, close quote. Here's what Bernie Sanders had to say about it. One of your most important allies, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said recently that she thinks it's legitimate and relevant to talk about sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. Do you agree?
I think it's relevant and to talk about anything. And I think any woman who feels that she was assaulted has every right in the world to stand up and make her claims.
Do you think that should weigh significantly in the mind of...
I think that she has the right to make her claims and get a public hearing, and the public will make their own conclusions about it. And I just don't know enough about it to comment further.
All right. So as you can see, guys, it was a really wide-ranging conversation. In addition to all of those topics, I also asked him about Joe Biden's pick for vice president, who that should be. And Bernie Sanders told me he'll leave it up to Joe, but he hopes that it'll be as progressive a choice as possible.
Yeah, we're all waiting to see what that's going to be. But I found, Tony, let's go back to the first part of the interview when you asked him about fundraising. I found his answer very interesting on that. It didn't sound like I can't wait to get out there with or without this pandemic. Did you take anything away from that answer?
The fact that he's not right now committing to fundraising for Joe Biden tells me that that might be a point of leverage for him to try to get some of these ideas that are not part of the Biden platform into that platform before the election. All right, guys.
I love that minute when they're all like just looking at each other. But again, I wanted to play that clip. I know that I posted it earlier and everything, but I wanted to play it because I've been saying this from the minute that Joe Biden announced that he was going to run for president of the United States. The minute he announced, I went on camera and I said, anyone who gives Joe Biden a donation is a fucking idiot. And I said it exactly for this reason. The second he becomes the nominee, and not 1 minute before, the second he becomes the nominee, one woman after another is going to come out and it's just going to be this creepy Uncle Joe thing, creepy Uncle Joe. And then he sniffed me and my skin just crawled, you know. And then he started touching my children. Okay, and I'm telling you, this is just the beginning, and it's not even Fox News doing it. And it starts the second he becomes the nominee. Just like I told you the day he announced he was going to be president. This is what I told you was going to happen. Don't believe me? Go look it up. It says the title of the video is anyone who gives Joe Biden money is an effing idiot. That's the title of the video. I think I was pretty clear where I was coming from, right? About Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. Joe Biden's not a good person, and again, he's responsible for 1 million innocent Iraqis being murdered based on lies with his approval. He did nothing to stop it. He stepped up, in fact, and helped George Bush make it happen. So he's a horrible, horrible, horrible human being. And he's cost our people, your children, the future of America, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in resources. And it's like no big deal. Oh, yeah, no, he's the guy that should be president. No. He never belonged in the White House in the first place. And the second Obama picked him, we should have all gone, oh, okay, that's who Obama is. I guess we have to vote for Hillary. Fuck. Shit. All right. So, that being said, I have another video about
And the zoo scare caught on camera in Dublin. 7-year-old Sean was posing for a picture in front of an animal enclosure when a full-size Siberian tiger lunges at the glass. The family says Sean was startled, but they are just...
And I gotta check that one off. Oh, and people have been talking about the meat plant processing plants closing. I know we were talking about that on the phone a little bit last night, and I have a couple of stories here about multiple meat processing plants closing, and apparently the workers there are quite terrified of this. But again, the workers there may make a lot more money on unemployment than they do working in the meat processing poultry plant, if you know what I mean. If they're going to get $600 a week or whatever, you know what I mean?
Also happening this morning, there's growing concern about the nation's food supply chain just days after one of the biggest pork processing plants in the country was forced to shut down in South Dakota because of a COVID-19 outbreak. Smithfield Foods says it's closing 2 more plants, which processes ham and bacon. Meanwhile, in Iowa, there are at least 2 deaths from COVID-19 confirmed at a Tyson's food plant. Hundreds of workers are infected. The North American meat industry says the meat supply is strong, but more plant closures could bring shortages in the stores.
If we continue to see shutdowns of plants going forward that can't operate, the crisis that we're in, that we could see some further disruptions in retail.
This comes as grocery stores struggle to meet historic demand with more people than ever now eating at home. Experts say it's that change in demand, not the supply, that is the biggest challenge when it comes to the food supply chain right now.
Cover story and the growing concern about our nation's meat supply. More processing plants are closing due to workers contracting COVID-19, which has many worried about the availability of meat and poultry at their supermarkets. Becky Worley, she's going to join us now from San Francisco, has much more on all this. Thank you, Becky. Good morning.
Good morning, Robin. Yeah, depleted meat cases in the grocery store are not something we're used to. So what's going on with the beef, pork, and chicken supply, and what alternatives exist?
Initially, it was panic shopping that made meat and poultry sparse. But the closure of some meat processing plants due to COVID-19 is something else.
If we continue to see shutdowns of plants going forward that can't operate, the crisis that we're in, that we could see some further disruptions in retail.
The North American meat industry explaining while the supply is strong, more plants closing could mean seeing some items out of stock in grocery stores. So let's talk alternatives. Start on Yelp, searching for local butchers. Mine says supplies from both local and national retailers are good so far. And think about direct purchases from ranchers. A few years ago, I visited the Marquigard family ranch, beef raised about 50 miles from my house, and they have online ordering, shipping, and delivery. We also have meat and fish sold at our farmers market. And about fish, because most Americans eat fish in restaurants, there's a lot of excess supply. Rerouting that to supermarket frozen cases and even direct-to-consumer options could be a reasonably priced protein option and much-needed help for fishermen.
Fish tacos are a big hit in our house.
Rethinking dinner, one smart choice at a time.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue says empty shelves are a demand issue, not a supply issue. He compared it to a traffic jam with Americans rushing to stock up their pantries, but says there is enough food waiting to head to the stores. Grocery chain Wegman echoes that, telling us they don't anticipate a meat shortage, Robin.
That's good to hear. But there are alternatives, as always, if you decide not to eat meat, right, Becky?
Absolutely. Some studies of American eating habits show us getting twice the amount of protein we actually need. So a short-term switch to grains like pasta or plant-based proteins like beans, that's not going to hurt us at all. And don't forget canned meat. I grew up in Hawaii, so Spam fried rice, Spam and eggs, Spam sushi. Were you guys Spam eaters when you were growing up? Canned meats.
Oh, remember it oh so well. Yes, but we're big with fish tacos, like your household. Same here, Becky. Same here. As always, thank you so very, very much. We're going to kick it back down to George. George?
Some other headlines now. Facebook steps up its fight against misinformation. That story tops our headlines this hour. Facebook says it'll now message users who've liked, commented, or reacted to false information. Executives said they put warning labels but didn't remove 40 million posts last month. The company will alert users interacting with misinformation that has since been taken down. Then they'll be directed to the World Health Organization's debunking website. The Department of Health and Human Services announced an agreement with General Electric. GE is expected 50,000 ventilators by July 13th under the Defense Production Act. The contract between HHS and GE is worth $336 million. The department said in total, government contracted companies will have 187,000 ventilators ready by the end of the year. Comedian Michael Che is offering to pay 1 month of rent for everyone living in a New York City public housing complex. Che made the announcement on his Instagram, saying this was his way to honor his grandmother, Martha, who died from coronavirus. He said his grandmother lived in the housing complex in the 1990s, which has 160 units. More than a dozen workers at a Tyson chicken plant in Tennessee are infected with coronavirus. Our sister station in Nashville investigates why the plant isn't shutting down.
Workers at the Shelbyville plant say 17 people there have tested positive for the virus. Hourly workers, now deemed essential, are scared. Why are you hiding your identity?
To keep my job.
They hoped it wouldn't come to this. Workers at the Tyson chicken plant in Shelbyville hid their faces under blankets because they could no longer hide their fear.
I don't know if I came in contact with somebody who already had it.
This week, they were told 17 people inside the 1,000-employee plant had tested positive for the coronavirus. They are worried about working side by side with people who may be sick.
I'm scared. I know I gotta work because ain't nobody handing me nothing. So I know I gotta go in there. I'm going in there putting my life on the line just to make sure they get this chicken out.
But their biggest fear is taking it home to their families.
I don't know if I got it or not. So for me to try to be around my family, I try to keep distance from them because, hey, I'm the only one who's still working.
Even though with Tyson putting up all the safety precautions they can put up, it's still a huge fear factor.
Union President Randy Hadley represents food processing workers across the country, including those in Shelbyville. He says Tyson is doing the best it can. The company is buying equipment to take people's temperatures when they come to work. They are separating people, providing face masks, and encouraging them to stay home if they're sick.
We've got to get the product out to the country. You know, it's something that's affecting the meat industry all over the country right now.
What should they do?
Shut it down, clean it up.
Workers say the plant should shut down for a couple of days for a deep clean to get the virus out.
I believe they spreading. I believe they letting people come through there with a fever and tell them they're good going to work. That's what I believe.
But the union rep said other plants that have closed for a few days to clean just see a new case days after they reopen.
We shut it down and we clean it, and then we reopen it, and then they come right back, and we've got people that's got the germ. It's back in there again. What do? Do you just keep on shutting it down?
Tyson has offered a $500 bonus for workers who don't miss a day over the next 3 months. But workers we talked to said that simply encourages sick people to come to work.
It does, because at the end of the day, they can't afford to miss work because they ain't got no type of money saved up to fall back on.
Come to work to get that money. They're going to come in there sick just to get it.
We're not real happy with that. That's something, and Tyson has changed that.
The union says workers can now get the bonus if their absence is excused, which includes missing work for being sick. Why are you wanting to speak out?
Because I'm afraid for my health and everybody else's health.
But for these workers, their worries are the most basic of all, for their safety and the safety of the families they come home to.
They worried about it. They scared. They don't know what to do. They don't want to take it home to their kids, and I can't blame them from that.
The CDC says the coronavirus is not a food safety concern. Tyson says it's working to fulfill its critical role of keeping people fed while also keeping its employees safe.
Mike is hot. Okay, so oh, right. Okay, I have another story about nuclear. Anyways, I wanted to play that story because because people have been talking about the meat processing plants, and I didn't want you guys to not, feel like there was some information on it coming out. I feel bad for the people that are, afraid. Of course, I always, fear is like the worst thing. To have to live with fear all the time is horrible. So that's why I've always encouraged, something better. So I feel bad for them. I don't know. Trump is talking about restarting the economy. These people are going to start getting back to work. You're seeing what's going on in Michigan with the protests. The people are already pushing back on the lockdown. The lockdown, the fear, doesn't seem to be having the effect that they're trying to get it to have. And the more people push back, the less effective the government is, and the less people will respond the next time the government tries to act like we have to lock down everything. So, so they have to listen to the people. And Trump is like, we got to get the economy open back up, which... the people agree, absolutely. And that's the thing. So we have to pay close attention. But again, as I've said, we'll get through it. Just stay cool. We'll get through it. And I think that we're getting close, I think that there appears to be some light on the horizon, shall we say. Okay, so let's see. That being said, again, with the China thing, what I see happening is that you're going to see this ramping up more and more and more. And this is all basically war propaganda. This is, those people have done evil and need to pay a price, and how many times have we heard this from the Pentagon and the White House? And how many times have they been completely fucking full of shit? And the media. And how many times have they been completely full of shit? Every fucking time. Okay? So, again, it's above my pay grade to know what's really happening yet. But I know that the media and the White House and the Pentagon are fucking full of shit. And I will never let you forget that. So, as you hear these things, consider them with that in mind. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, Vietnam.
What's happening?
I don't know. I just got out of bed, man.
I figured that. I didn't see you in the chat. I was like, he's sleeping.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get old. Old people fucking take naps and shit. I'm stupid, I'm old, and I'm slow. Help me. I can't get up. I've fallen and I can't get up. That's a fucking cry of America right now. Help me. I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah, I don't think that's really, that's what the media is, the media, I don't know. Look, man, it's again, we're in this uncharted territory, and if that's how the people are acting, which I don't know if they are or not, some I would suppose are. There's a lot of people who love to play the victim in our Western culture, it's part of the programming. But what's where we're at, that they might be afraid and trying and worried about getting through this with all that, overwhelming programming, the every day, the fucking death count is put there in your face, the fucking media is basically, bring out your dead, bring out your dead, I played a clip earlier. The CDC is counting probable COVID deaths, not just.
You know why?
Yeah.
Because they're getting around 16,000 for every death certificate like that. Plus, I think about 35,000 if they go on a respirator. That's why. I didn't see the video, but did they happen to mention that?
No, I didn't see that in the video.
I think they probably won't put that on the mainstream, but it's been all over the internet for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
it's pretty legit. Those are pretty legit figures, man. So that's like 1635. That's like fucking 50 grand for, you know, that's enough to stick somebody on a respirator just for the 36 grand, you know? It's like, wow.
Yeah. And again, this is why I don't trust for-profit medicine, because they have this alternative agenda besides to heal you, which is to make as much money as they can off of you.
Well, you know, we are really locked in a house, locked in a room with our own ghosts right now as a society, because this shit has been coming for fucking a century since they passed the IRS and the Federal Reserve Act, and now look where we are. It's like you can't fucking hold hands with somebody without getting thrown in jail and a $1,500 fine, and that's normal, you know. So the worst thing that could possibly happen would be that we let this shit slide and we get even more apathetic than we've been. I know a lot of people who, if they haven't said it to my face, it's the way they think. My sister actually said it to my face when I was talking to her about government corruption and 9/11. She said, well, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. And that's the worst attitude. That's like saying, you know, just, you know, there's nothing we can do about the birth.
Well, that's saying I don't want to have this discussion with you, really. That's her way of getting out of it.
You know, first they came for Uncle Bob.
No, man. See, the thing is, it's a very difficult discussion to have. If you don't want to have the discussion, it's incredibly difficult. You really won't be able to even listen to it for more than a few minutes. Because
cognitive dissonance.
Because you get all fucking. You get like vertigo and stuff, you know. It's like, whoa, I feel like I'm falling. Just too much overwhelming information. I can't handle any more of this. You have to stop, you know. And the norms, the people that aren't fortified by the cannabis, you know, they can't handle that shit. So what do you expect?
Well, it takes some getting used to adjust your psyche to the actual reality when you've been living in a dream. You know, it's like, you know, maybe Uncle Sam, maybe we should invent a new fucking label. You know, he's not my uncle. He's like, you know, I don't know, you know, a demon's name. Just, you know, throw a demon's name out there, you know, Rock Me Amadeus or something like that. I don't know. But it's, you know, we will get through this with casualties because people are dying from poverty and getting evicted as we speak, plus all the deaths from the actual COVID-19 itself. So the question is, if we go back to normal, whatever that means, if we go back to, you know, okay, well, we live in America and I have a job and, you know, have a rent payment and my child goes to school and I'm a member of the Parent-Teacher Association and, you know, we really don't want to go back. We really should be activated as a society. And you were just talking about all the shit and the finger pointing at China. And this whole thing that Trump is doing by defunding the WHO and getting into a new inquiry about the origins of the disease and where, you know, did it come from Wuhan? Was there an escape from a biolab?
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's a bullshit. That's a distraction because the United States and China both put hundreds of millions of dollars into that Wuhan lab. And and nobody's asking the important question is like, you know, like that Star Trek movie. Excuse me, what does God need with a spaceship? You know, somebody's got to stand up and say that. You know, excuse me, what do we need bioweapons labs for? And where are they? And who funds them? And what do they do? Because this whole this whole thing Trump is doing, it seems to be good on the surface, right? It seems like it's a legitimate inquiry into was there a release and is China at fault? But, you know, just like all the dumb fucks were pointing fingers at Russia for the last, 4 years, I think they were pointing fingers at Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it's China's turn. We're going to be pointing fingers at China when, you know, when you rob a bank and the money blows up and they got that blue powder on it, you know, I forget what they call that stuff, and all the bills are marked and then it's on. The United States has that shit all over its hands right now because we funded the research in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We in 2015 on the SARS-2 virus, we funded the research in Fort Detrick, Maryland, and then those viral agents, that DNA, where did it go after those two American biolabs, both of which were funded by both the American government and the Chinese government, and you'll never hear Trump or Pelosi or even Rand Paul. If Rand Paul does it, I swear I'll convert to fucking Fruit Loopyism or something, because we made that fucking virus, and we gave that virus to Wuhan, and the Chinese doctor was working for us along with China. And I don't know if any of your other callers have said this, but it's like, you know, that scene out of the movie Network where the guy says, "You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale. There are no corporations. I mean, there's no countries anymore. There's only IBM and, you know, IG Farber and blah, 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 Westinghouse. And that's, you know, but nobody's going to point that out on TV. Donald Trump is probably unaware of it himself, that the money that made the virus was American money, and the owner of the virus was Americans, but he's going to keep pointing the fingers at China just because China did have you know, some psychotic relapse and released the virus accidentally into their own fucking population. That doesn't make them criminals of the whole matter, which is 2015, 2020. It's a 5-year process, you know, just to get a 4-year process just to get to Wuhan. I mean, if we
this is what I'm saying. It seems like there's going to be this giant misdirection is going on, and this is what they do, and it becomes way more clear that they're doing it when they go into overdrive, and it's just like this continuous, never-ending discussion, like the Russia thing.
There's another distraction going on, and I think you might have played a video on it last night or the night before. And that distraction, it's a minuscule fucking matter. It's a conspiracy theory that somehow 5G is hooked into the coronavirus. And there's all these conspiracies and this and that. And the only reason the mainstream is even talking or brought it up, it's not that they brought up something that is not in existence. I've been watching that conspiracy theory for a month now. Yeah, I've had friends call me up from Utah telling me about it. I'm going to make my house into a Faraday cage. I'm saying, Hawk, it's not 5G, man. 5G and COVID-19 are completely separate issues, you know, but the reason they bring that up is just to muddy the water even more. They're not concerned with conspiracy theories like that. They're concerned with covering up the truth, which millions of people already know.
Well, the video that I played about that was that YouTube is censoring all the videos that talk about they somehow link COVID and 5G. So they may be covering some of that up.
Yeah, it's legitimate that you don't want people walking around with inadequate protocols. And believe me, I'm not the kind of guy that bows down to police and authority. So, but you know, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Whatever you do, don't spit on people because they're Muslims or Chinese or whatever. Don't do shit like that. But that's why they bring up the YouTube shutting down all those conspiracy theories and Facebook shutting down that particular conspiracy theory is because it's just a distraction from the real story. How come Mark Zuckerberg hasn't come out and said, well, you know, the virus was made in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in 2015 by American money, and then it went to Fort Detrick, which was American funded.
When did Mark Zuckerberg ever come out and say anything like that?
Yeah, well, you know, all these robot-looking motherfuckers like Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and
he looks just that Zuckerberg looks just like Jared Kushner to me, man.
He looks like Data in Star Trek.
They could be cousins.
but I don't want the population, which I'm a member of the population, I don't want us to forget about what really happened. Because if we let this go, next they're going to be spraying us with viruses out of airplanes rather than some vial tipped over in China somewhere and some guy forgot to change his fucking jeans or whatever it was. Because the Americans are responsible. The CIA is responsible. And I'm not saying that we should trust China, because China is a sneaky fucking country full of people. You know, the difference between America and China, basically, besides the fact that we have a constitution, or at least we used to, and they don't, is that when those Chinese Illuminati get together in their Chinese Illuminati rooms with their chopsticks and their fucking, you know, Chinese slanted eye on top of the pyramid, they're planning strategies, long-term strategies for a century or 50 years. And when the American Illuminati gets together with their sunglasses and the fucking, you know, J-Lo Hollywood bullshit, they're planning a strategy. Well, how can I make money over the next 2 weeks? And well, fuck the poor people. Let them eat cake, you know. And that's what's going on. It's let them eat cake, you know. Actually, you know, I haven't got no money yet, but despite the fact that some few people are receiving relief,
yeah,
we already found out 6-7 weeks ago that there was only about 200 billion out of a 7-point-something trillion package, and every goddamn major corporation in the world and all their buddies too got the big money, and we got the scraps. That bailout package was trickle down in action. That's what that was.
Well, that bailout package was this basic criminal, never let a crisis go to waste bullshit, man.
Yeah, and you don't hear anything about it, except on your channel and other people, you know, other people talking about it and all the, you know, all the activist channels and stuff. It's already old news. You know, it's like, well, there's nothing we can do about it, you know. And it's like, man, I really don't want to let this shit pass. This is like, I mean, the Titanic is really, the ship is sinking. And if we let it go, fuck. I mean, I'm in favor of revolution if something productive comes from it. I mean, if you hear about something
I'm in favor of revolution regardless, okay? We come from fucking people who stood up and fought off a monarchy, okay? That's what this country is about. The founding fathers expected us to fucking overthrow this piece of shit government long before fucking the CIA was formed. And for whatever reason, we've been lulled into this fucking trance-like state that resembles sleep. And we just fucking robotically go through our lives, and they just herd us wherever it is they want us to go, and we buy whatever it is they want us to buy, and we act like they have all the power, and we're just serfs.
Yeah, well, my entire life has been one big pushback on being a serf. You know, it's like I'm not your slave. You know, I was born a free man. And I'm never going to be a slave, you know. But after Occupy Wall Street, I got really disillusioned. It's like, where are the on-the-ground movements now? It's like and by the way, the streets are empty. Everybody's indoors. So, it's all on the internet now. Every activist is on the internet. And I'm, God bless the people. What is that? Detroit, I think. They had the protests yesterday and today, right? Wasn't that Detroit?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. God bless those people.
Hell yeah.
I mean, fuck, man. It's like, I'm so aching to overthrow this government and throw these criminals in jail and fuck the international banks and fuck the biolabs and fuck the puppet show, fuck the puppet master.
Yeah, all the puppets need to go to prison. All the puppet masters need to go to prison, and we need to fucking reclaim all of those resources, including all the fucking corporate fucking giant companies, the oil companies and shit, man. There is no reason that shit should be privatized, not for 1 second.
Right, and every country that nationalizes it goes under attack by America, like Venezuela for one, or Iran for another.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's like we have, with modern technology, we have the ability to feed everyone on Earth and house them.
Right. And that should be a top priority, not some fucking, let's see if we can go to Mars. I mean, that's a nice thing after you solve this basic thing where there's people dying of hunger, right?
And the thing that we have, instead of feeding everybody, housing everybody, giving everybody adequate medical attention, is war, deception, corporatism, imperialism, and the plundering of the planet and the enslavement of the people. It's really getting close to being a sci-fi movie, especially with the virus.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've been describing it as a sci-fi movie. I keep bringing up the V for Vendetta, which is exactly what this whole thing is all about, that movie. And then last night I was talking about Bird Box, I mean, Bird Box.
Well, you know who the Guy Fawkes of today is?
This is just like Bird Box, man. What's that?
You know who the Guy Fawkes of today is? He's rotting in a fucking prison in London right now. His name is Julian Assange. And he doesn't have superpowers, and he's got a bad lung, and he can't get the fuck out of there. And the whole trial is a show trial. And he didn't try to blow anything up. All he did was give a bunch of information to the Guardian, Le Monde, the New York Times, the Washington Post or Times, one of those two. And he waited for them to publish it. And then he published the same stuff last. And every single minute bit of what he gave all those world newspapers and what he published himself is absolutely the truth. And so he's the Guy Fawkes of today, and he's probably going to die. They won't. They'll let him die of COVID-19. Look what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. They'll let Julian Assange die, and then, we have plausible deniability. He just happened to die of COVID-19. Sorry, Julian. Poor old Julian.
Yeah.
So long, Julian. And that's the world we live in. Where the Guy Fawkes of today, the other Guy Fawkes, what can we call him? Shirley Fox. What's his name? Bradley Manning. What's his other name? Bradley.
Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea Manning just happened to get out of jail a while back, and she's another one that stood up. And they're all, in 2,000 years ago, you had this weird kind of world traveling Jew named Jesus, who they nailed him to a fucking cross because he said, "You guys suck." So they nailed him to a cross.
Right, he was a fucking rebel. People don't get it, man. He was, again, this is the spirit. This is, this spirit that the organized religion seems to take away from you, to try and make you into sheep, to be part of their flock. That's not who these people, the people who start things like founders of our country. Jesus went into and kicked over all the fucking bankers' tables or whatever.
Right.
He was
Right.
like, this is bullshit, and we're gonna stop it now. Here's what you can do, and he set the example. He's like, you have the freedom. Don't kowtow to these fucking nobodies.
Right. Yeah.
And people seem to think, Jesus is some kind of a, you have to be a sheep and a follower, and no, you have to fucking stand up. And I keep thinking about this quote, this like, you want to know the key to immortality?
What is it?
Living a life worth remembering.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, that's yeah. I mean, we are not valueless creatures. Every human life has value.
I've said again and again, you're the superheroes of the planet. You're here to protect the planet and all the little creatures who need protecting.
Right, and we learn from each other. When you see your neighbor standing up to a bully or the police or some kind of injustice, or he stands up for you and he protects you from the bully or the police or some fucking lawyer or whatever it is, be encouraged by that and be that guy. Be that guy that stands up. I mean, I am. I've had to fight so many people. I can't even remember all their names. I'm like fucking the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. I can't. So many people have tried to kill me. I can't even remember all their fucking names. And I don't know anything other than, well, actually, I've been living a peaceful life for at least 2 years now. But I really, except for a couple of short spans of peacefulness, my whole life has been a fucking struggle. So I don't know anything but it, and I'm quite willing to lay down my life, to die for somebody else or for my own principles, because dangerous freedom is much more rewarding in the long run than comfortable silence, comfortable acquiescence. Johnny Depp in the Pirates of the Caribbean, I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request. That's a wonderful sentence that you could say to any cop or any judge. I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request, Your Honor. I like to see that in a fucking courtroom. But we got to stand up. You're doing it. You spent goddamn 20 fucking years on TV and the internet, and you're not doing it for no reason. So
I'm doing it because it's what I know how to do, and it seems like the right thing to do. And forever, people have come up to me and told me that I made a difference somehow.
Right? Yeah. Your legacy will live on. Just excluding the whole internet contact, probably just personal contact. I'm the same way. I got no influence on the internet, but in my body and the people I've met and the things I've done, I've made a good difference, and I ain't done. This is the time right now. The worst thing that can happen is we forget they fucked us with the so-called relief package. They relieved billionaires and millionaires. They didn't relieve us.
Yeah.
We could forget about 9/11. We can't forget about that. And there's some court stuff going through right now. NIST was just handed some National Institute of Safety and of Standards and Technology was just handed some papers 2-3 days ago. That's going through, but it's just a minor thing in the whole picture of 9/11. We can't forget about 9/11. We can't forget about this giant $7+ trillion fake bailout. Whatever we do, we can't forget that this virus is man-made, and we have a runaway government which is owned by corporations, and we don't want this to happen again. And these biolabs, we can't loosen the pressure up on these biolabs, and they haven't even felt our pressure yet because it's not on TV. When you have televised bioweapon labs protests on TV, you'll know that we're applying pressure. But so far, we're just hiding in our houses. And whatever you do, people, just don't forget, you're in your house because the American government fucked you. And now the American government is pointing their dirty plastic fascist finger at China as a distraction.
Not just at China, they're also pointing their fascist finger at the protesters that are now going into the street. The proud American tradition of going into the street and demanding that the people be heard. That they're labeling them. I played a clip earlier where the governor of Michigan was talking about the protesters waving Confederate flags. So they're fucking labeling them, racist and shit, man.
Yeah, that's a divide and conquer strategy.
Yeah. So it's not just China; it's proud Americans also.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try wearing a big giant pink vagina hat and a Southern Cross flag, and maybe I'll have an Iron Man shield or something like that. See if they can pin me down with all that shit on, man. It's like, you can't label me, man. It's like, so I don't know. I mean, humor aside, dangerous waters, dude. There's a killer virus made by America, and people are. We can't get complacent. So I feel bad about myself because I don't know what to do about it except talk to you about it or everybody else I meet who looks at me like I'm a nut job.
Stay cool and get through it. And hopefully there'll be opportunities after after things begin to semi-normalize. Because there'll still be a lot of people at home as things begin to semi-normalize, which means everyone can then go out. But, we have to be whatever it is they say we have to be. But, it'll begin to semi-normalize. And then a lot of people will still have a lot of time. And, and I don't have this same feeling about the people, about them being so asleep and hypnotized and everything. I think that they are the people that we're waiting for. And maybe, now that they'll have the free time and that we've gotten over the fucking hump, that now is the time to begin to make something bigger happen,
Well, for all we know, if we grab a hold of our nutsack and tighten our belt a little bit, this could be the time for Occupy 2. Except that's public endangerment. You guys can give yourselves a plague if you protest, But they already know what to do for the Occupy movement. It was a pretty clever thing that happened, that the people in New York tried to go down Wall Street, and they copied the tactic of the Egyptian protesters. And when I saw that, I said, oh, fuck, I'm in, baby. Boom. Right down to L.A., right to Zoo Town. And I watched the whole thing, and it's like I told you, I was pretty active in that. And that's what I want to see. It's like when you get people in the streets, they're going to have to deal with you. And we all know how they deal with us. So, but at least...
Right, and again, that's what I was talking about earlier. The first thing they do is try and vilify the people in the street. The governor of Michigan was talking about how those people those proud Americans who went out in the proud American tradition and demanded that their government, their representational government, listen to them. The governor said those people are going to be responsible for other people's deaths. And then she talked about them waving Confederate flags like they're fucking murderers and racist.
I think when I was in high school, I graduated in 76. When I was in high school, they had what you call social sciences, right? And they teach you all about things like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And they intentionally removed any study of the Constitution out of the schools, any study of the Bill of Rights out of the schools, because you don't want to tell the the slaves that they actually have rights. So we're going to stop it now, and we're not going to teach in any school in America about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. And that way, you know, they're just more of those slaves will just tuck their tail between their legs and keep their head down and say, "Yes, master. Yes, master. I'm sorry, master. I'll pay the money, master. I swear I will. I'll pay the money, master. Just give me a week." And so that should go right back into the schools. You teach every student from the age of what, 6th grade maybe. This is what the Constitution is.
The schools have to be just completely re-fucking designed, dude, because what's going on in them now is really, it doesn't seem like, if they're not teaching the Constitution, if they're not teaching empathy, if they're not teaching, any real life skills, which I think that they do, but they need to emphasize more on art, and they need to emphasize more on, what it really means to be human,
And what are you good at? What would you like to do?
Right. Exactly. They need an individual kind of training process. If that's what they're there to do, is to learn how to fucking go out into the world, then they need a very individualized training process, because this cookie cutter shit doesn't work for any of us.
Except the government.
Well, except for maybe parents who need a babysitter. But it really doesn't work for you, and you're fucking your children by sending them into it.
Well, I think the Romans who conquered all of Europe and part of Asia, for centuries they held sway over so much land. And they had kind of a theory that if you can indoctrinate people for 20 plus years, they'll forget their own history and they'll be easier to manage. And apparently that's a pretty good tactic. And look at what we got here. So many people aren't aware of their own basic rights, and they're not aware of history. And you got that Mark Dice guy walking around with a microphone, and what's the capital of the United States? And asking really stupid questions that the young people don't even know. Omaha? It's like, fuck. It's like, they've already done it to us. It's been going on for more than one generation, and people are dumbed down. I don't think you like to hear that word, but
I call it programming, but you can call it dumbed down. They've been programmed to be dumbed down.
Right. Yeah. So, they've been doing it to us forever. And
yeah, they don't want people to be who they're supposed to be. This is my problem with organized religion. Again, right. God gives you the ultimate freedom to do absolutely anything on this planet that you can imagine. And all the religions want to do is take that from you immediately. No, you don't have that power. What the fuck?
Yeah, it was worse at the end of the Dark Ages, before the Renaissance. You could pay the church money, and they would make you crawl on your knees up some steps, and by paying them the money and doing that penance, you wouldn't go to hell, you would go to purgatory. That's how mind controlled those people were by the Catholic Church. And you can extrapolate that to any religion. But the Catholics, they were pretty fucked up, man. I know from experience is that, when you got to pay money to get out of hell and you haven't even died yet, and the fucking priest is getting his dick sucked while he's drinking the good wine, shit's fucked up, yo. It's like, so and remember the first fucking night I met you, you had fractals going in the background. And I told you, fractals also represent the repeating patterns of time and history. And so we're in one of those points on the fractal where we're repeating the stupidity of what would it be? The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War II. You can draw any analogy you want. I can't do the math. I can't pinpoint a point in past history that is exactly analogous to this having a worldwide virus and every bank on earth owning the people, which is pretty much what we got right now, plus the endless war machine. But we're in deep shit, baby, and I think we ought to put our boots on and get ready for a shitstorm, because as soon as we get out of this, May 1st.
Yeah. Well, we're look, it's again, we're in uncharted territory. The people are very scared. The program is working, but it's not working as effectively as they hoped. So things are going to start to come back to normal, more or less. And we'll see where it goes from there. Okay, I hate the doom and gloom stuff, But listen, I got to take a break, so it's good to hear from you, Michael, and thanks a lot for all your input.
Well, thank you, Michael, and I'm glad you stay positive. I'm a little bit more doomy and gloomier, but we will get through this one way or another. And
well,
by
see,
the way,
the thing is that it's like what I've experienced in my life is that as I say again and again, that we get through this. We always get through it, and it may not be the way we hoped, the way we wanted, but it seems to be okay. It always seems to be okay. So we'll get through it, and it's gonna be okay. That's the way it's always been for me, anyway. So I got to keep the faith that that's the way. I don't know why that would change all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well. All right. So let's just stick with that. I'll talk to you later, bro.
Okay. Good to hear from you. Thanks for calling. Hey, that's our buddy Michael from Southern California. Craig, do you still have another caller? All right. Can I take a break real quick? Okay, hold on. All right, so this is, again, the China stuff, and I think it's important, and that's why you're hearing it. Not that one.
Gretchen Whitmer has spent most...
Following up tonight on a story we broke for you here last night, we're learning more about the origins of the coronavirus and what is being called the costliest government cover-up of all time. Here's correspondent Jillian Turner.
Sources confirm for the first time there is a U.S. investigation underway into a Chinese infectious diseases lab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Investigators are also looking into whether the virus accidentally got released by an employee of that lab into the general Wuhan population back in December. Multiple sources say this scenario is looking increasingly likely. The Chinese Foreign Ministry responded directly to Fox News' reporting.
The head of the WHO has stated many times that there is no evidence that the new coronavirus originated in the laboratory.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo cautioned Fox News last night there's still a lot to learn before investigators can conclusively say the virus was released from a lab and didn't originate in a wet market as China's government has claimed.
The mere fact that we don't know the answers, that China hasn't shared the answers, I think is very, very telling.
Trade advisor Peter Navarro says one of the reasons China's government delayed reporting the virus was to buy time to stockpile medical equipment and PPE.
It was going systematically around the world, vacuuming up all of the personal protective equipment that people in America and Milan and everywhere else would need to defend themselves.
Navarro claims the Chinese government stockpiled 2 million masks between January 4th and the end of February, despite China only reporting 83,000 COVID-19 cases to date. The Associated Press reports Chinese leaders ordered secret preparations for a nationwide outbreak, telling local authorities in Wuhan on January 14th about a likely pandemic resulting from a new lethal strain of coronavirus. But it wasn't until January 20th that President Xi Jinping issued a nationwide warning reflecting this guidance, his first public comment on the pandemic. In addition to the two State Department cables warning about lax safety and security procedures inside this Wuhan lab, we're now learning from our sources that the lab may not have been operating at the safety level it was cleared for, known as biosafety level 4. And sources continue to emphasize to us today that despite what you may have heard, there is zero evidence to date that this virus was manufactured as a bioweapon. Brett?
Okay, Mike is emphasize. Okay, so and one of the things I really want to point out that I think is really important is that they had to emphasize there at the end that there is zero evidence that this is a weaponized virus. And in my humble, unscientific mind, I think that's completely untrue. I think there is some evidence that this is a weaponized virus, and that, you know, the reason that they want to say that there's zero is we don't want to have the discussion about weaponized virus, and that's the really important thing that I see going on that's not happening in these clips, is they continue to talk about how this is created in a lab or whatever, released from a lab, but they don't talk about, you know, where else these kind of viruses might be being created, and why are we creating things that can kill off the population, and who is it that benefits from that, and who is it that thinks that this is a good idea? Why is no one talking that? Oh, because it's not a weaponized virus. There's zero evidence of that. Now, in my very humble opinion, I think that's completely untrue. And again, I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, but what I see happening seems to have some very specific things to it, specific elements, and that. It just doesn't, you know, all this just seems a little bit, and then there's this, you know, China, right? And we know that when they were saying Russia, that all of that was complete fucking bullshit, right? When they're saying Iran, complete fucking bullshit. When they're saying, you know, Iraq, Saddam Hussein, right? Complete fucking bullshit. Reefer madness. How many generations have they said marijuana has zero medicinal qualities? That's who the media is. It's fucking bullshit. It's super bullshit, Tron. That's who it is. That's who the fucking media is. Hello, caller.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. Who is this?
It's Aaron. I've talked to you before.
Hi, Aaron. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Love the background today, especially you with your pups.
Yeah, I love that one too. It is digitizing a little bit because the YouTube is like slowing the streams or whatever, cutting the bandwidth, but or throttling it. But so I don't play that one as much as I would like to, but I just get lost in that video. I can watch them shake water off like 24 hours a day and just keep a big old smile on my face, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and this is really lovely to get a kind of a nice picture of, you know, Washington there and Seattle, and yeah, it's very nice. Your backgrounds are the best on YouTube. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. This is drone video from my friend Sam. He just got a new drone, and he's taking down some videos for us, which is cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always have good background, so this is nice. I'm really enjoying this, and I imagine it's probably a lot of fun having one of those drones. You know?
He's one of those brainiac guys, you know, and he's always doing something, and he has a thing for aviation. He like he you know those winged like kite things that people fly.
Yeah.
He got one of those, and then he did one with a motor with a propeller strapped to his back, so he could fly for long distances and stuff.
Wow.
And
so he wants to put the camera on that, huh?
Oh yeah, he got some pretty cool video of that too.
Wow, that's a brave guy right there.
He's always doing something. He tries to keep himself busy, you know.
Yeah, that's good. So you're holding up, huh?
I'm good. My life hasn't changed. I go and walk the dogs every day, and the only thing that I'm really doing different is that I don't go to the grocery store quite as much as I was.
Yeah. I guess, I'm trying to think too. I haven't done really that much. I mean, I'm not working because everything's closed, but I was on my way out anyway. So it all worked out quite well.
Yeah.
And then we found out today that, we're going to be in lockdown till on Memorial Day, and then they'll examine it again. And then all the schools
where are you calling from?
I'm in the Midwest.
Okay.
And so the schools are going to be, they're gone. They're done for the year.
Yeah.
So anything that they're doing is going to be online, and they're going to try and make some kind of, I don't know, I guess they're just going to say, all right, we're just going to lower the credits. You get to graduate. And I don't know if they'll cancel graduation or not. I guess it depends what happens.
But I've heard a lot of graduations here have been canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have early graduations, a lot of them in May, and then school starts early too. It starts in beginning of August. So, and they're very strict about how many days. But the governor, our governor's a Democrat, so Trump says he's going to do this. They want to do something different. They all hate him a lot.
Who is they? Who is they?
They meaning the Democrats.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I was taking a piss earlier today. Excuse my language. I know too much information, and I was just standing there, and I was thinking, God, I fucking hate Trump. So I apologize, but it really has nothing to do with him being president, except for that probably puts him more in the forefront of my brain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you flip a coin, Biden, Trump. What's the difference? They're both horrible.
Oh my God! Biden's unelectable. Yeah. There's no way Biden can win.
No, I mean, I do think that he's touched too. I think he has dementia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear.
It appears his brain is not working correctly.
No, he's made up so many stories and lies over the decades and decades. He's been lying. There's a video that somebody put together going all the way back from the beginning of his career, and it's just one lie after another. Just trying to get some, accolades, for votes, and so he's lost in it. I mean, this is what happens when you lie. Nixon was right about it. It's the lie that gets you. And
I also honestly believe that if you lie constantly and you're having to keep track of the lies constantly, that also I believe that can lead to dementia. I think that can really fuck with your brain, especially if you're not protecting it with the cannabis.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I don't know about what he's smoking or what he's dropping, but
he's not smoking anything except for maybe fucking cigarettes or stogies.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a really strange bird. He's always been kind of a strange guy. I remember when he first started running in 2008, and I actually was backing him. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, Joe Biden, he's funny. He's got the little bit of long hair there, from the 80s. And he's the guy you want to have a beer with. He's the guy who's got his GTO, and he's funny. But boy, it didn't take long before he stuck his foot in his mouth, so many times. And the fact that that Obama picked him up, I just said, I started seeing a lot more about him. Of course, back then, I was campaigning for Nader, and Nader was right about everything.
Yeah.
And that's one thing everybody should say. Nader was right. He was right about it all, the whole time.
Yeah. Craig was looking at video clips of the TV show that we did back in the day, and and we had girls on there going, vote for Nader, and just flashing like crazy. It was fun. Those were fun times.
I'll tell you something. The whole Bernie thing was a real big shock when he stepped up in April 2015. Because if you remember, because I got a lot of my information watching your videos, there were a lot of people talking about, this is the year for third party. I mean, everybody's talking third party. Everybody's talking, the left is going to move. And they were talking about this, and it was really serious, and you just felt it. You could feel it in the air. And then Bernie steps up in this gymnasium, and he says he's going to run. And you could just feel the Green Party's sails just fall flat. It's like, he's joining the Democrats? Why is he doing that? He's an independent. And that's when I started to think, you know what? I bet he sold out. I bet, because Bernie's history in Vermont is interesting, because he started out as mayor, made his way up, as a representative in Congress and then senator. But that whole time he ran as an independent. He would never commit to the Democrats. But as long as he voted a certain way, the Democrats would never put up a challenger to him. So he's developed this relationship with the Democratic Party where he feels like he can say he's an independent, but in reality, he is a Democrat, and he sold out. And it's like a habit that he developed. Thinking that, in his mind, he's thinking he's independent and he's, kind of a maverick in a way, like, I don't want to say like McCain, but,
Yeah, no,
separate from that.
I get what you're saying, that he's like a true option to the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, he ended up being just a token. Now, one thing I thought,
it's not that first, he's the controlled opposition, so that he can act as if there's room in the Democratic Party for these free-thinking people who actually want a better America for everyone, when there's actually really no room for those people at all.
No, he was well hidden in a lot of ways. The one thing that
I agree 100%. And you know what it is really, is that people are desperate for someone. We want, it's like we want to believe that the cops are heroes, and we want to believe that the politicians are there to look out for us, and shit like that, right? But we don't have that option anymore. And when we hear somebody who sounds like they're looking out for the people, we're so desperate to hear that we like jump at it and we go, oh my God, thank God you're here, and God, we just buy into it heart and soul immediately. But it's because we're good people who want to believe, and it's just so hard to have that fucking dream that actually someone might be caring about the people be just popped like a fucking balloon over and over and over again. It's just so hard,
it makes you wonder about Bernie in a lot of different ways. But I think it was when I was campaigning for Ralph Nader, and I went to a number of places to introduce him and do all that kind of stuff. And I talked to him about Bernie Sanders, and you know what he told me? Mm-hmm. He said he met Bernie Sanders once, and this was at a buffet table. And he said, "How you doing?" And that was it. You would think that these are two men who would probably have a lot to discuss over lunch or something. And he'd never talk to anybody. And when Hillary Clinton came out and said, nobody likes Bernie, she was telling the truth for the first time. She was right. Nobody likes him. Nobody likes him because he doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, but
he doesn't get along with anyone.
But when you consider the source and you consider the people that he's surrounded by a bunch of war profiteering fucking criminals, and when you're surrounded by those kind of people and nobody likes you, that's probably a good thing. But I hear what you're saying.
You would think.
Would think. And I'll tell you, that was one of the things that really bothered me during this campaign season, was that when I would see Bernie Sanders, do an event, it was like as soon as he was done on stage, he was out of the building. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he stood there shaking hands with people and took a minute to connect and talk and say, you know, what's going on in your world. It was like, boom, I said my piece, we're out. And
Yeah.
that really, really bothered me, especially, you know, when you look at, you know, Tulsi Gabbard and other people who seem to be, you know, trying so hard to really connect with the people. And then he
It's
just,
a little autistic, you
Yeah.
know, in a way. I guess.
Yeah.
But you saw the video of him at the town hall. Was it back in? Well, maybe it was 2016, where that one person stood up, was talking about the Palestinians and Israel, and he's defending Israel. And this guy kind of loses it a little bit, and Bernie starts yelling at him and telling him to shut up. Shut up. Have you ever seen that video? It's pretty startling.
Yeah, you know, he I think he gets accused of not taking, you know, letting protesters take over his fucking shit, and, you know, that being not
Well,
so. But at the same time, I hear you.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, this is a voice that's incredibly important, and one of the most disappointing things I ever heard Bernie Sanders say was Israel has the right to defend itself. You know, when we all know that's not what Israel's doing.
Right, and he'll lean towards the Palestinians a little bit, like, you know, it's like, well, nobody should be treated that badly. I mean, what's happening right now, we're not seeing, of course, because of everything else that's going on, but they're denying the Palestinians everything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Well, that's
and
been
the things
that's
they
been
need,
the-
they won't give them ventilators or anything.
Yeah, but it's been that way forever. I mean, you know, they blow up their fucking hospitals, and then they won't even give them cement to re-fucking build them. You know.
It's just shocking when you think about the history that's been shoved down our throats, but that's another story. I won't go over to the Israel question.
Yeah.
But you know, there's an article that came out today. It might be Newsweek, which I really hate. But it was with Jimmy Carter, and he basically said the reason that China's doing it as well as it is because they don't go to war. And we spend all our money on war. We spend all our money on bailing out banks. We spend all our money on bailing out big corporations. I mean, the fact that Amazon exists is just outrageous. You know, that should be broken up, and it should be given, you know, broken up amongst the people, and they can do, you know, they can have worker owned or just leave it as it is, and then just take the profits and give everybody a dividend. There's your UBI right there.
Yeah.
You know, universal basic income, healthcare. Amazon would pay for it all.
Yeah.
And I don't see why not, because we're the ones who actually buy from it.
And you know what else? If we cut off Jeff Bezos right now and said you don't make any more money for the rest of your life, it's not going to hurt him one bit, you know. So let's do that right now. Yeah, there's no way. I mean,
you can't count that high.
It's all that fucking big ton of money that he's sitting on is just going to make more money that he'll never be able to spend.
Yeah, so there's something wrong with us as a species, I think. And, you know, I know that people are talking revolution, uprising, but the one thing that we don't have, and this is the thing that, you know, just, it's a brick wall that, you know who Jimmy Dore is. It's a brick wall that he always ends up running into, which is we're not organized. We have nothing. We have no unions. We have no we have no background at all.
Right.
And we can't even get along with each other. And one could say, well, that's the reason for diversity, because as long as you're culturally different.
No, that's ridiculous.
You're not going to get along with people as well.
No,
you know, you're not going to have confidence in that. And then, you know, they've got all the divide and conquer stuff: race, gender, income, politics, crisis, age.
No, the divide and conquer stuff has been almost perfected.
Yeah, it is really. I mean, as soon as one thing drops or people get tired of it and say, well, this is kind of a bullshit after all, well, they just throw something else in there. They'll throw an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll find something to get people upset. And then you look at the media, it's six people basically own it all.
Right.
They're all connected. So they own our communications. They own all our transportation. We're stuck. So there's no way, and there's no way we're going to ever get together as a nation again. The only thing you could say is maybe the United States is too big to fail, so break it up. And I think eventually we will go in that direction. California is already heading in that direction. You know, they've got secession on the table. They've got 3 states they want to break off. I think that's where it's going to go. Yeah, I think Trump might be one of the last presidents we ever have.
Well, he's talking about adjourning the Congress, and I mean, if he does that, the election can't be far behind, right? So.
Well, how many times was FDR elected? 4?
Yeah.
You know, so, and then they said, well, enough of that. But I mean, that was a wartime president, and I don't think that Trump would go to war with China. I don't think China would go to war with us. It's just not worth it. And I kind of this whole virus thing too. It strikes me as maybe this was a test run. You know?
Me too. I get that feeling a lot.
Yeah, I mean, people. Oh, why would China kill their own people? Well, they've got 1.4 billion, so they've got people to spare. You know, and if you look at those wet markets, and you go out into the countryside, you know, if you're a sophisticated, well-educated leader, you look at these people and say, they're expendable. You know, we've got too many. I mean, look at that Wuhan. 14 million people live in that city. I mean, that's stunning to me. 14 million people? Can you imagine the sewer system, the plumbing system? You have to be really disciplined, kind of quiet people to make that happen, you know, and people just go to work and they come home, they go to work, come home, you know, so it's a different culture, very different. And
it looks like they go out to dinner, and I mean, I think that they have quite a social life there also. You know, they like parties.
Well, but they're homogenized community. You know, the Chinese do not like other cultures or races.
Well,
and you know, yeah, it's very clear. I mean, it's very racist.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, look, they're an ancient civilization. I mean, and they have been, and I mean civilized. They've been civilized for a long fucking time. You know, and they look at these. I mean, basically, the United States is fucking barbaric compared to the way that they've been for fucking 10,000 years. So.
No, I disagree with you there. If you go out in the countryside, because you're only seeing Beijing, you're only seeing Hong Kong, you're seeing, you know, these big cities. You go out in the countryside where most of the people live, and I'm telling you, it's dirt poor. It's like Appalachia, you know. It's the whole of China is like Appalachia. It's just so different,
yeah.
You know.
No, I understand that. I've seen a lot of video like that. Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of video. I understand that too. Go ahead.
Yeah. But, you know, I do think that one thing is, as a people, you know, they used to say that they would be more like a group soul. You know, like they move as one group, whereas we, like, you know, in the Western cultures, we move as independent people. You know, independence is really a big thing here. There, it's not. I mean, they'll swarm. And that's why you see, I think what will happen is I think China will pretty much take over most of Africa. And they're moving in that direction because that's where all the minerals are. That's where everything it is that they need. They don't need us anymore, really. They've got the 2 markets themselves in India. They're on the verge, you know, breaking away.
Yeah, they don't need. I agree. They don't need us anymore. This whole Belt and Road Initiative thing is going to be huge for them, and they're going to have all the new clientele they need for the rest of forever.
You see Alibaba, you know, what's going on there. And that's why Bezos went into India.
You mean going on right now with the COVID-19 or?
Oh, no. Just as a business. I mean, he started a bank with Tencent, you know, and so now they have a bank. and they're basically the Bank of the Philippines now.
Wow.
So this is something Walmart was trying to do that here. They wanted to be a bank, and of course Wall Street said, "Get out of here, Walmart." But Walmart ended up doing something close to it with their debit card for their employees.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Bezos wanted to get in on that. He wanted to get into a bank, but he knew that wasn't going to happen in the United States because of regulation. So he was able finally to break into India, and that was good for him. And India also has, they want to be a superpower. Of course, now they are. And Bezos got in there, and their enemy, people think it's Pakistan. It's really China. So there's a lot of competition between India and China right now. And India is in South Africa, in the southern ends, and China's coming in from the center. They're building Nigeria and the Congo. They're trying to get in there.
Yeah.
Because that's it. I mean, that's what I don't understand, in Africa, and especially the African Americans here. If you went home to your roots, to your continent, you would be living like kings because there's just so much there. And yet the people don't own any of it because they're manipulated there very easily. They get the tribal wars going. As soon as anybody gets smart enough to say, we're going to take the oil, we're going to take the gold, we're going to take the diamonds, we're going to take the minerals, and we're going to, share it with our people, our tribes here. And then right away, you'll find another tribe will come in out of nowhere, and they're armed and everything. Where does that come from? Well, we know. It's, these international bankers. They're in there. And the weapons are always supplied by Israel. So, this world politics thing, I'm more like I'm more Jeffersonian. I like, here's our borders, fences make good neighbors. You stay on your side, we'll stay on our side. Everybody will be happy. We'll have free and fair trade, right? We'll give you a reasonable amount and we'll trade you reasonably. But that's not how that sector works. And that's what they're doing. That's why the divide and conquer works so well in this country, because it maintains their power. And it's the same thing with voting. People think, well, I hate Trump, so I'm going to vote for Biden, or I hate Biden, I'm going to vote for Bernie. It doesn't matter. As long as you're participating in the system, you give the powers that be the mandate to continue that system. And they own both sides. Everybody knows it, but they haven't thought it through because they think they have to vote. They think, well, even if I vote third party, I'm saying something. No, the only thing you're saying when you vote third party is that this system is fine with you. You're happy with it. But as long as they own the two parties, and even if you do get the Greens going or any third party, they'll get in there. And we saw that with the Tea Party. Remember those guys?
Yeah.
Carl Denninger started that, the taxpayer revolt. And the thing is, he did it kind of like out of anger for the banks, right?
Yeah.
But he had no long-term plan because he didn't want to be that involved. So he let other people do it, and then everybody dropped the ball. And who walks in there? Dick Armey. Dick Armey and the Koch brothers, and they took it over. So that's what always happens. You saw the same thing with Occupy Wall Street. They were undermined. Soros got in there. So these guys, they see something bubbling up. And they say that could be a problem. Let's get in there. And that's what always happens. That's why the only thing I can think that we could do is develop our own tiny little communities, intentional communities. And then, if you can get enough like-minded people to move in to one area, one region, one state. We figured it out. It's about 5 million people. If you could do that, you could actually develop your own country and ignore the United States. You could really ignore it. That's the only way you could do it. Any revolution, you're going to get Waco'd.
Yeah.
It's just that quick.
Yeah.
Or you'll get something like this pandemic, where you can't even organize. 6 feet apart, social distancing.
Yeah. No hugging.
Yeah, I mean, they've actually succeeded in breaking up the protests that were going to happen at the Democratic convention in August. They actually were able to destroy it with this virus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had a lot of Bernie people who were going to go there and say, "You're not going to cheat us again." And can you imagine if this virus didn't exist, and the energy was there? Yeah, you'd have another Chicago. What was that? 68 or I think it's 68, right? The Democratic convention in Chicago where the cops were beating everybody up.
Yeah, that sounds right. The cops were pretty hot that year. Those years were pretty bad for any kind of protesters.
Yeah, that was like Jerry Rubin and all those hippies, right? So, yeah. So there's no way out, Mike. There's no way out. You've got to find your ilk. You got to find people who think like you, who want to develop communities. It's really hard for Western people to do that because they're independent thinking. Whereas it's different in China. I mean, if you look at the videos that are coming out that people are shooting and putting up on Twitter, when they come together, I mean, they move like they just move like massive starlings. You see them in the sky flying together. These people they flock together. There's a story. Now, this is 10 years ago when Walmart first opened its first store in China. And they would have, Chinese started shopping. They finally had enough wealth to go shopping. And so they were these people work in the Walmart, and this woman came in there, and she was shoplifting. 3 employees followed her out of the store and down the street, and they beat her to death. So it's sort of like kind of a hive mind sort of thing. They really see what they're told is right and wrong, and they just make sure it happens. And the corruption's that way too. This one guy was walking around, I guess, during the COVID-19, pandemic there, and he went to another province. He was gambling, and he came home, and all the neighbors went to his house and started throwing rocks at his window, and they were like shaking their fists at him for going out gambling during this, pandemic. And they wanted to beat him to death if the cops didn't show up with weapons. They would have dragged the man out.
Yeah.
And this is just sort of like a middle-class neighborhood, So it's a totally different culture, and we don't understand it. And we're just starting to understand it when we see these wet markets, I mean, and you see, roadkill or anything. The Chinese will eat anything, and they'll eat it alive. It's just crazy.
I was watching this Japanese news the other day, and they were at a kindergarten, right? And the kindergartners, they had a squid, right? And the squid is live, and they fucking chop it into little slices, and it's and the kids are taking little pieces of it, and you can see the fucking squid like looking at them and shit, and they're eating it, and it's fucking live, and I'm like, this is crazy.
I've seen some videos that you wouldn't even believe existed. And you look at it and you go, God, is that fake? Is that fake? That can't be real. That can't be real. But it's real. And there's some places on the internet you can go and you can just see like pages and pages and pages in these threads of these videos that come out of China that are just unbelievable. I mean, the dogs and the cat business, that pretty much did me in.
Yeah.
How they prepare dogs just killed me. And I just said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't even want to buy anything from China. Bring all our jobs back.
Yeah, I agree.
Trump.
I don't think. Look, I agree with you on that 100%. I've never understood why, how it benefits us to have everything that we need manufactured outside our borders. It seems
labor.
Like
it was all cheap labor.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Walmart started, when Walmart began, their reputation was everything in the store is American made.
Yeah.
And then
Union.
And then it fucking all of a sudden it became, that just didn't exist anymore. How could it go from such a giant swing from one to the other?
Well, that was under Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it all really happened. I mean, they got most favored nation. It started with Nixon going to China. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch. There's a lot of documentaries on that Nixon going to China that opened the door. Only Nixon could do it because they were communists, and the Republicans were the party that were anti-communist. All the during Eisenhower with the McCarthy and all that stuff. So only Nixon could do it. So he opened the door, and from that point on, little by little by little. After Mao died, it was like the door went wide open, and China was saying, "Come on in. We need your help. We need to go in this direction," because they couldn't feed everybody. The system was just collapsing all over the place, and you can only do that for a decade before you get overthrown. So they knew they had to come up with something. That's what they have. What they call the there's a special word for it. But what it means is that 8 families. So it's basically 8 families run China, and they have all the power, and as long as they can keep the communist system going, they'll rule. And you see certain people are given certain things, certain opportunities to go out and make a lot of money. But any time the government can say, "You're a traitor, we don't like you, we will either kill you or we're going to take everything you own." Everything, anything in your apartment, your car, whatever, ultimately it belongs to the state, still to this day, and they can ruin you totally. So that's how you kind of keep people in line. And now they got the social credit thing going on.
Yeah.
The Democrats want us to go in that direction, and that's what Clinton was doing. He was pushing us in that direction. But what he was doing was really appeasing the dangling the carrot in front of the Republicans, like, look at all this cheap labor, look at all this cheap stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much to bring it back over here. And, the jobs just left because wages, was it 49 cents an hour compared to somebody else who at that time even making minimum wage was 6 something? That's amazing. So yeah, they all left, and that was treacherous. Really, any other country probably would have put him on the gallows. But that was the prevailing thought back then between both parties, and that's when we lost. I think that's when it was really gone. I kind of think it disappeared under Reagan when he handed it all over to the banks, but it really vanished under Clinton, and then the banks had free reign at the end of his administration. It was a shame. We lost our country, and Obama made it worse. He started getting into the privacy areas and our freedoms, and whittled away at that all over the place. Went from 2 wars to 7 wars.
Yeah, well, Bush made it worse, and then Obama was just a continuation of Bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and more so. I mean, NDAA.
Yeah.
I mean that when he signed that was the end of the 4th Amendment right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like Bush on steroids.
Right.
So here we are with Trump, who actually, surprisingly, and I know this is hard for people to believe, but he put the brakes on a lot of things, which is good on some things, but on other things, he just goes right along with the banks. They were in the repo markets. They were crashing back in November, and he already got a bailout under the Fed's new policy, which was quantitative easing forever. And prior to that, it was Obama who bailed them out 3 times. People, they don't really know that because they don't understand what quantitative easing means. But, as long as we're not having another crash, I'm happy. But they had toyed with this quantitative easing forever, since 2015. They were trying to push it through, and Obama wouldn't sign it because he didn't want to. I guess he didn't want to leave his legacy with that. But they did pass it. The Fed passed it, the policy in last summer. That's when I knew, the bubble's gonna pop. It's just a matter of when. So I could go 6 months, and there we had it. By the time February came around, the virus was perfect because it gave them a cover. Now, one could say conspiratorial. The virus was manufactured to cover the banks, but I think what happened was the virus came about and the bank said, opportunity is knocking, let's do it now. And so rather than getting bailed out for their bad debts and the repo market just crashing them all, I mean, literally, Citibank, JP Morgan, and this time Goldman Sachs would have gone under because they couldn't do it. The repo markets could not take their debt. And so the Fed went in and it had something like 30 days worth of quantitative easing left that they had in funds. And so they just said, let's go with the virus. So boom. All of a sudden we go from Trump's sniffles to, oh my God, it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's conspiratorial. Probably another 5 years we'll really find out what happened. But it's pretty clear if you look at it carefully. They took advantage of the situation. I'm not going to say that they created the virus to cover the banks, but was it Rahm Emanuel? He said, there's always an opportunity in a massive crisis. So why not take advantage?
Never let a crisis go to waste.
Right. That's basically it. And that's what he did. And if you look, his brother is involved in all of that.
Yeah. These people are horrible, and the fucking nepotism runs so deep with them. That's why I keep saying their families need to go to prison too.
But the thing is, how do you do that if you can't organize?
Well,
if anything that you do kind of come together like Second Amendmenters are going to get Waco'd, well, what can you possibly do? There's really nothing you can do. You can say, I'm going to find another way where I don't have to use that system as much as possible. And there's ways to go around. I mean, for now, there are ways to get around it. Eventually, they'll probably close those doors. But there are ways to do it. The only thing is you can only do it in small communities of, at most, maybe 100 people at most, unless you can get some momentum and, attract, enough people to where you can start taking over, a village, a town, a city, a state. And that when that happens, it's going to be very quick. But, they're going to keep their eyes open, and they're going to try and stop it. So you got to be careful. Nonetheless, you can keep fighting the system that you're never going to beat, or you can start developing these intentional communities. And you need a philosophy, basically. You need a philosophy or a religion. You can be like the Mormons, who actually pulled it off, even though it was a long time ago. But they pulled it off. Amish in some ways have it going, but they have no power. They just ignore, the whole political system as much as they can. It's more of a thorn in their side than anything else. So what can you do? That's all you can do. You can just try and find your kind of people who think like you, and start developing your own places. I've seen people who find little towns that are about, almost ghost towns, and they try to get as many people as they can to all come move there. And they get their mayor and they get their dog catcher, and they start to grow, and they start making it, nice for people to live there. So you can still do that for now. And then eventually you get to a point where you can look at the federal government and say, we don't want your money, and we'll pay taxes to you, if you leave us alone, kind of like Bernie Sanders running as an independent. I'll do what you want me to do. Just let me be an independent.
Yeah, no, that's it. I love the idea of taking over towns. That's a great idea.
Yeah, you can look into that. You'd be surprised how many of these movements are out there. There's like 27, 30 pieces of secession legislation on state tables. They're in the process right now. 18 states, maybe 19 states now, part of a continental, what do you call it? A continental, a constitutional convention. Now, it could have been done in the last election. If we had one more Republican governor, it would have been a majority of Republican governors, and it would have happened instantly. They have to get 34 states to do it, to call the convention. And so they've got 18 right now. So they're getting organized. So that's something else people can get involved in. You want to be part of to amend the Constitution, which means that you can say, well, everybody gets health care. That's not likely, but there's certain things. You can solidify the Bill of Rights. So you get rid of NDAA. You can override the president. You can override the Congress with a convention. So this is something that people could do. Whether or not it'll happen is kind of 50-50 because they're always finding something. This is why the Koch brothers got involved in local politics. They found a way to find a state, and they manipulated things in such a way using their laws to get what it was they wanted. That's how they got the pipeline. And then what they did is they just carbon copied everything and sent them to different states and made slight adjustments, and they put a lot of money into that, and they got everything they wanted. And so not only did they just undermine Washington, D.C., but they're undermining all the local governments. It's like what the weapons industry's done. A part's made in this state, a different part's made in another state. And so you can never get rid of war because you're going to put a lot of people out of work in all these different states. They thought this out very well.
Yeah.
So how do you combat that? You can't. You can only bitch.
The plan's been in the making for a long time, and they understand. It's like you said. See, it's like the people don't have a plan of attack, right? But the government has not just a plan. They have a giant psyop. They have fucking all kinds of plans, and they've been executing their plans for quite some time. So we're at a major disadvantage. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, there's only one Western nation that is that the people of that nation still have a say. They have a seat at the table to this day, and there's only one nation that I know out of Europe and the Americas, Australia, the typical Western nations, formerly European folk. Only one nation has it, and you see if you can guess what it is. I mean, one nation in the world out of all the Western countries where people have a constitutional right to have a seat at the table outside of the representatives and all that stuff. Real working people.
Just tell us, okay?
Okay. Germany.
Okay.
And you know who gave it to him? Hitler. So it's the only nation in the world that has that. He gave them a seat at the table, the Volkswagen, and the Autobahn.
All right.
And they never let it go, and that's why they always have a place to negotiate. Now, Merkel's been trying to undermine that. They can't lose him, but they can try and buy him off. And that's what they've been doing. They've been giving him raises, more benefits in exchange for the immigration coming in. And they think that once they get enough immigration, and the immigration that's coming, the migrants that are coming, aren't well educated, and they have a different culture. So then it'll get to a point where they'll have enough of, I guess you could say, a mandate that they could undermine the people.
Right.
And that's the globalists at work.
Yeah.
You know, the banks at work, trying to take away the one thing that Hitler gave them that was really good. And people don't know that because you can't talk about that guy. He's evil and bad.
Yeah.
He's terrible.
All right. So anyways, how come you haven't called for a while?
Oh, well, I've been kind of, well, you know, it was my busy time of the year, you know,
good.
because
Yeah.
I do teach, but then this virus came in, and then I actually got sick, and I was really kind of worried for a little while. And then I'm working on a book, and I'm doing some other stuff, so I try to catch you, and usually when I do, it's at the tail end, so I have to watch the reruns.
Right on. Well, I'm glad you're still watching the show. I must be doing something right.
Well, I go, and even if I don't make the whole thing, I make sure I put a thumbs up. Everybody in the chat, thumbs
cool.
up.
Well,
make sure you do it.
The people in the chat deserve it for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm meandering on here. I'm sounding like your friend Michael in California.
Well, it's good to hear from you, and I'm glad that you got your laughing and, you know, keeping your spirits up and, you know, ready to fight, staying strong.
But think about that community idea.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, I think that's the only way we're going to get out of this, Mike. I really do. Okay, guys, take care.
All right, it's good to hear from you.
All yeah, stay well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see. So that's our buddy Aaron from the Midwest. Let's see. I have another video. I'm gonna play it now, and I'll be right back.
For years, we've always said, if you live in Oklahoma, either you're in the oil and gas industry or you know someone who is.
Those employees staying home, off the roads, gas stations feeling emptier. In the past month, gas prices plunged in Oklahoma by more than 50 cents a gallon.
The lower prices, they just hit everybody.
1 month ago, Tom Tseng was looking at reduced oil usage in countries like China. Now, it's a global issue, especially in the U.S., with travel to work and vacations in question over the long term.
Are they making vacation plans for this summer? Because until we see that happen, we are in really dangerous situation where gasoline demand and jet fuel demand this summer could be all-time lows.
That reduced demand has hurt the oil industry, forcing companies to limit spending and reduce drilling. Tseng says the effects will continue as long as COVID-19 keeps its hold on the economy.
When you have active drilling, then these small towns, the motels are filling up, the restaurants, you know, are serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Tseng says the industry could have to become even more efficient in Oklahoma after companies undergo a forced downsizing. But he sees hope down the road.
If the economy can get back to where it was, then energy usage will be there. I mean, this is not the death of the oil and gas industry.
Tseng says people getting back outside, going to work, and traveling will be the turning point for things getting better. While that happening during the summer months would speed up the process.
People are going to feel much more confident about moving around. And the economy will get back to where it was, and you cannot run an economy without energy, and we are still very reliant on fossil fuels to run this economy.
Chris DeMaria, 2 Works for You.
I'm back. Yes, I'm back. All right, so I have one more clip, which is another clip about the oil production in Texas. And I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. And that's my last clip.
For the first time in decades, regulators in Texas are considering cutting oil production across the state as demand continues to plummet due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Texas Railroad Commission held a virtual hearing on the topic Tuesday. The panel's 3 members heard hours of testimony from speakers on both sides of the issue. Those in favor of the cuts say temporarily reducing oil production could help shield companies from a major crash, stop prices from falling further, and limit the amount of wasted oil. On the other hand, opponents argue companies will adjust production on their own and that regulation could do more harm than good in the long run. Stay-at-home orders and travel restrictions have dealt a major blow to the oil industry, but it's also hurting from a Saudi-Russia dispute that's caused gasoline prices to plummet. The TRC decided not to take action before the hearing was adjourned. It's unclear exactly when it'll make its decision. For Newsy, I'm Johanna Grenaway.
All right, so let's see. Oh, no Boo Bear down by the river. Go up on the river bank, Boo Bear. Okay, so we got Chris on the phone from Olympia. How's it going, Chris?
I'm doing well tonight. How are you doing, Mike?
I am good. Thanks for asking. What's going on in your world?
I'm doing all right. I'm still alive in this time of plague.
Yeah.
And I've been reading today about the stimulus and more like the economic ramifications of the slowdown. That kind of like where my brain has been, and just trying to think about some of the reasons that can be used by the elites, or maybe what was going on in their mind when they took advantage of this crisis. Like, how can they take advantage of the crisis? And if you remember, 2019, there were all of these global demonstrations around the world. They were in like Algeria, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Egypt, France, Haiti, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Russia, and Spain. All those countries had large demonstrations, and some of them are still ongoing. I think the Yellow Vest is going to continue as soon as they lift the restrictions in Paris. I'm sure it'll continue. All of them were anti-austerity demonstrations.
Yeah.
It was because of governments that were making cutbacks because they had to pay more to the International Monetary Fund, or they're like a little bit ahead of the economy slowing down, and their economies were already kind of teetering right then. So people were going into the streets over austerity cuts. And I find it fascinating that just happened 6 months ago, or 7 months ago, 8 months ago. And now people can't even go in the streets. And in some of those countries, like in Ecuador, if you recall, in Guayaquil, we're seeing photographs of people leaving bodies on the streets because the government isn't able to deal with the crisis in their country, in Ecuador in particular. And when I saw those photos of the people leaving their dead on the streets, wrapped up in cotton sheets for people to come by and pick up in a truck later, supposedly, but it made me realize that those people are going to be even more pissed off, right? And when the social distancing orders are lifted. Have you thought about that? Like how the people in the third world are going to respond when they didn't have very much to begin with. The economic downturn is going to cause the same problems in those countries that are going to occur in the United States. I mean, how do you think those people are going to respond?
It's going to be, they're going to respond even more powerfully than they were before because they, the need is overwhelming.
And they've already demonstrated that they're much less docile than the American working class in those countries. In Spain, in France, in Iran, they came out in the streets to complain about austerity measures. And I wonder what it's going to take for the American public to do that.
In Spain, they fucking voted to secede, man.
In Catalonia, yeah. And their leadership, like 8 of their leaders or 12 of their leaders, are going to jail for leading that uprising. So they actually are paying the consequences. Like real revolutionaries are people who go to jail for their principles until they win. Like the person in South Africa, right? Who stopped apartheid. Mandela. He went to African National Congress. He spent like 35 years in jail before he had a chance to lead that country. So that's what real revolutionaries do. They speak the truth and they lead the people. And I don't think Bernie Sanders is that guy. By the way, our revolution. They love to take the language of revolution and kind of slap it on a really flashy flyer and hand it to you. This is our revolution. But none of the leaders of our revolution, of the Sandinistas, were really willing to pay the cost. Like, he didn't pay the cost. The cost would have been if he would have stood up to Joe Biden and said, this is totally corrupt, this is a totally rigged system, and he should have figured this out, like in February when the Super Tuesday happened. Right when the shenanigans happened, he could have just said, you know, to hell with you, the Democrats. Sandinistas, I am telling you the truth right now. The Democratic Party is completely rigged. Follow me into a third party. We have just enough time to get on the ballot in November. Let's do it. If he would have done that, he would have been a leader. But he also would have maybe lost his Senate seat next round. He would have lost his ranking in whatever committee he's on in the Senate. He would have been not as chummy with the other Democrats in the U.S. Senate. That was the very kind of meager cost he had to pay. And he said, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to support Joe Biden. That is not a leader. You know what I mean?
Not a leader in any way. It's just not possible for me to be more disappointed at this point in American politics, dude. And I thought I was disappointed before.
So, news of the rich, Amazon. I think I mentioned this in chat, but this was from the World Socialist website. It says Jeff Bezos cashes in on coronavirus pandemic, adding $24 billion to his fortune. And it says Bezos is not an aberration. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has added $10 billion to his personal fortune in the first 4 months of the year. Alice, Jim, and Rob Walton, the owners of Walmart, have profited fabulously from the pandemic, increasing their personal wealth by $2.9, $2.26, and $2.42 billion respectively, without stocking a single shelf or retrieving a cart. So there's 3 billionaires that have already made, multiple billions of dollars just in the first 4 months of this year. They're doing great. And there was another article from Forbes that I didn't see. I don't watch TV, but it says how some rich Americans are getting stimulus checks averaging $1.7 million. So they gave the working class $1,200 checks, right? But in the CARES stimulus package that was passed, there was a tax break that only is going to benefit a certain amount of people. And this is what Forbes says. While wealthy Americans are not eligible for the comparatively measly $1,200 stimulus that are being distributed to many Americans, they are on pace to do better. 43,000 taxpayers who earn more than $1 million annually are set to receive a $1.7 million windfall on average, thanks to a provision buried in the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. It goes on to say, to put it in perspective, like the amount of money that these 43,000 people are receiving, it says, quote, for those earning $1 million annually, a tax break buried in the recent coronavirus relief legislation is so generous that its total cost is more than total new funding for all hospitals in America and more than the total provided to all state and local governments, said Doggett. And I'll find out who he is. He's a representative from Texas. He's a Democrat. He says
he's a pretty outspoken guy.
Yeah, he said someone wrongly seized on this health emergency to reward ultra-rich beneficiaries, likely including the Trump family, with a tax loophole not available to middle-class families. This net operating loss loophole is a loser that should be repealed. So it's just an example of not only are the corporations getting money, not only will the banks get money, the vast majority of the trillions of dollars spent, they spent $350 billion on the working poor and the working class, people who work in America. But the $1.7 million in tax breaks is only going to affect 43,000 people, right? So that's the kind of society that we live in, where it's completely acceptable for those people to get the money because they have the power and influence to create the law, right? To actually craft the legislation. So I'm thinking that you remember there were articles about artificial intelligence taking over jobs last year. Remember? So like there were projections on what U.S. employment would be in the future, and then they projected like this was an article that was from U.S. News and World Report from June of last year, and the headline, I'll just read the headline. It says, robots will replace 20 million jobs by 2030, Oxford report finds. And that was a study from some economic group in England called Oxford Economics, that 8.5% of the global workforce will be displaced by robots in 2030. So, and then this other article from Como News from August 2019 says, your job won't be around in 2030. Nearly 40% won't, according to a study. And I looked at this study. It's from McKinsey, that same CIA firm that Buttigieg worked for.
Yeah.
They put out like a 126-page report that explains how the new economy, what the new economy is going to look like. And a lot of that is going to be because of automation and robots. And according to Como News, they say nearly 40% of U.S. jobs are in occupations that are likely to shrink or be cut by 2030, according to a new report. And then they give the things, office support, which employs 21 million Americans, is at risk of losing jobs to digital services. Food service is next on the list. Hotel, fast food, kitchens potentially automating the work of cooks and dishwashers. And it goes on to list other things, transportation services, builders, community services, so on and so forth. Significant chunk of the economy is going to be automation in the next 10 years. Therefore, the coronavirus does create the opportunity for a police state, but it also gives the elites an opportunity to deal with this right now before Magic Sufi and I take our pitchforks out of the shed and start walking towards City Hall. They have to do something, which leads to this other article that was in San Francisco paper. This is the last one that I'll reference today. And this was from SF Gate today. So the two people who wrote the $1,200 stimulus into the general CARES bill, so that was a comprehensive bill, and I'm sure people wrote different sections of it, but there were two Democratic senators, Tim Ryan of Ohio and Ro Khanna of California. And this is post-dated from Wednesday, April 15th. The article says, it says, new proposed $2,000 per month COVID-19 payment includes college students and dependents over 16. This is a quote. New legislation proposed by Representatives Ryan and Khanna Wednesday would expand stimulus payments to millions of Americans while the nation battles the economic impact of coronavirus outbreak. Khanna and Ryan are responsible for proposing the initial $1,200 stimulus check plan. If passed, the new Emergency Money for the People Act would mean all single Americans over the age of 16 earning less than $130,000 would be given a monthly $2,000 check until employment returns to pre-COVID-19 levels. Married Americans earning less than $250,000 would be given $4,000 per month. Families with children would receive an extra $500 per child, up to 3 children. These payments would be untaxed and guaranteed for at least 6 months and would continue until the unemployment falls to pre-pandemic levels. Notably, the legislation includes a check for those who had no earnings in 2018 or 2019, as well as college students and adults with disabilities who are claimed as dependent. A one-time $1,200 check is not going to cut it, said Khanna, who represents parts of South Bay area. Quote, Americans need sustained cash infusions for the duration of the crisis in order to come out on the other side alive, healthy, and ready to get back to work. We'll stop there. But you see what I mean? Like, if 30 or 40% of our jobs are going to disappear in the next 10 years, and the stock market already was overinflated, like everybody knew that this crash was going to happen. because of all the money from the quantitative easing that Obama and Trump have pumped into our economy in the last, 10 years. It's only natural that it was overpriced. The market was going to drop. So how to address all of that at once? You institute UBI, and you introduce it into the public mind through Andrew Yang in the presidential primaries last fall. You make them understand what it is. What are we going to do? It's going to be UBI.
Well, it seems like a good direction to head.
It seems more humane than letting people die and having millions and millions of people being thrown out of their apartments and their homes.
Right.
Because when that happens, they're going to have to go to war with the working class. Like, they're going to be beating up people in the streets who are just congregating because they have no place to go. They already have done that, by the way, and we both know this is true. And all along the West Coast, I know it's true for a fact. Homeless camps have been viciously attacked by people or have been minimalized by people for the longest time. It's only when they're afraid of getting sick by the homeless people that they give a shit about them. But when 30% of the American public is out on their ass, they're going to have a hard time pointing at those people and saying, those people were losers. Because they'll be losers too.
Yeah.
At that point, you can't be pointing fingers at people. You got to start treating everybody as a human being and saying, like, okay, we're all in this together. How are we going to help all boats rise?
Right.
And I think that they either have to do that or fuck. If they call off the election, I mean, come on, man. It's just asking for chaos. Maybe not in 60 days, but like you said, later, end of summer and the beginning of autumn. Well, food for thought, yeah?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to. I'm not sure what's going on with Congress. I don't know. They seem to be kind of not where they should be still. So hopefully more people will get on board because you can't just leave people hanging. I mean, right now the whole thing's fucked, and you can't just leave them. Saying you can't leave your homes, and so and you have no income. So it's just something's got to be done.
Those three. I mean, another thing I find interesting about that story is those were three different Democratic congressmen. I don't know how you feel. I mean, I think that they're probably bad on other issues, but the point is where in the hell is Bernie Sanders again? He's supposed to be cloistered in his monastery, studying like coronavirus and trying to help us out of coronavirus problem. Well, then why are these other congressmen being quoted in the press, and where is Bernie Sanders demanding that that the working class get their due in the Congress? Where is he?
The Congress seems to be absentee. The Bernie Sanders, again, he's. I think he's probably very, very depressed right now. I think if he's viewing any kind of outside input, people, I don't think, if he thought it was bad in 2016, I'm pretty sure he's not very happy right now.
Well, I hope somebody encourages him to eat some marijuana, have a Valium and a cup of coffee, and then get back to work, because that he was supposed to be the voice of this section of the Democratic Party that gave a shit about people. And I don't know. It's part of his job. It was in the job description of being a sheepdog, dude. So he at least can fulfill his role, Yeah. All right, I'm gonna leave on that note. And all the calls have been really interesting tonight. And of course, anyway, I'm gonna exit and listen to other folks call.
All right, Chris, it's good to hear from you. I'm glad to hear you're getting done what you got to get done.
Doing what I gotta do. As Elvis said, taking care of business, man.
There you go.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good to hear from you. Bye. That's our buddy Chris from Olympia. And I am getting so hungry right now. I'm ready for a big fat food. So, we do this every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. It's always better when you're here. Never forget, it would be completely meaningless without you. So, I hope we see you tomorrow night, same Mox time, same Mox channel. And remember, never forget, one of these days this war is going to end. You got to keep the faith. It's got to end. We can't do the same idiotic bullshit when other things are so much more important forever. So stay cool till then. See you tomorrow.
No matter which mouth you feed on a two-headed snake, it still shits the same turd. But lucky for you, you have Mox News. More than 10 years. More than 60,000 videos. Mox News has been filtering the nonsense and illuminating the bullshit from your mainstream media. Turn off your TV and turn on to Mox News. For over a decade, documenting the socio-political events that have etched and carved the pathways that define today's modern mess, Mox News has been providing clarity while faithfully bringing you today's relevant stories 100% commercial-free and subscription-free. And just like Lady Liberty vows to remain free. But at this time, we're asking you for your help, your patronage, and your support to keep the lights on and the videos rolling. For less than 17 cents per day, you can become a basic subscriber, knowing that your donation is truly making a difference that will help continue bringing the news stories that make a difference in your life. Turn on, tune in, and drop a couple dimes today by clicking the link below or visiting moxnews.com and show your support at any level. From a single one-time donation or dedicated monthly subscriber, do it now in less than 2 minutes. All donations are safe, securely processed, and verified using PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover Card. As always, we're sure you'll find something of interest each and every day. This holiday season, give the gift of Mox. moxnews.com.
Four-star high school football players accused of raping a 16-year-old girl in 2018. Those players were all on the Eastside Catholic football team, considered one of the best in